Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of workshop 2. We are happy we have come a long way from the day 1. We've had some very fantastic resource persons talking about diverse subjects. I am personally happy because I have attended each and every lecture from day 1 and I can feel the difference. Even in terms of the way I thought of it and what it has turned out, I think I'm quite satisfied in terms of the kind of resource persons we've had and the delivery that they have made in terms of the content and also the way of presentation. Now, today we have 3 stalwart presentations. Mr. Avinash Mishra, Senior Advisor, Water from NITI Aayog, will be joining us online. And Commodore Somen Banerjee will be joining us in person post lunch. And the first session of the day is by my very close friend, Mr. Dewan. It is a series of the technology lectures that we have planned. And I can assure you that it will be an extremely different experience for you. So, Manas, I will invite you and I'll also request you to kindly introduce yourself. I mean, normally we do not introduce our speakers ourselves because we would like him to share what he would like the audience to know. So, Manas, all yours. Thank you so much.
Hello. Great. Good morning, friends. I must tell you, I've always been a backbencher most of my life. So I'm really happy to find kindred souls within this audience. So please be comfortable wherever you are. I'm happy that you've chosen the seats that make me feel happy as well and gives me hope that perhaps I've not been that bad a student. If I have brilliant engineers sitting in the backbench, certainly, I have some hope for myself as well. Congratulations on beating the traffic, beating the morning blues, and making it here. And for friends who are joining us online, thank you for also being here with us. Online is great, right? I mean, it's a medium that has evolved. It's a medium that we almost now accept. And how many of you wish we could do more online than offline? Come on. How many of you wish we could do more online than offline? Okay, great. I can see some hands. How many of you game? How many of you game? Okay. Engineers and no gamers. Come on, you must be kidding. How many of you have played games? No? Online games? All right. Have you checked out the platform called Roblox and Sandbox? Any of you guys? All right, no problem. See, the reason I'm asking is because I will know how to shape the story which I want to share with you about what's happening around us and what's potentially going to happen in the future. So what I will then do is, let me start by making it very simple. And I'll try to stick to this thing of no jargons, right? So engineers anyways are exposed to a lot of jargons. So let me try and make it very simple for you. And hopefully, whether you've been inside a game or not gamed at all, I hope we could still potentially have a dialogue. Now, I'm going to talk about the metaverse. How many of you have heard of the term metaverse? Great. Everyone. How many of you feel with reasonable degree of confidence that you can explain what metaverse means? How many of you think you can reasonably well explain what metaverse means? Exactly. And what we are seeing here is exactly the reflection of the global statistics also. A large number of people understood, heard, and have become aware of metaverse, but clarity about what it means, what it stands for, what it can do for us, that's still, let's say, there's room for improvement in that area. So here's what I propose to do today. I'm going to take you through a little bit of an understanding of what the metaverse is, what it's doing for us today. And I'm not talking about building castles in the air and talking about the future. I'm going to talk about what it can do for us today. And I'll actually also show you what we are doing in the metaverse, just so that you really have an idea where is this future heading us or taking us towards. Because you, my dear friends, would be the people who are going to be stepping into that future. So it's important for you to understand what's the shape of the future so that you can prepare yourself accordingly. Right. Now, if you ask a lot of folks about the metaverse, perhaps you'll be met with a lot of jargons, and it depends on whom you ask. Some would say AI, some would say ML. What's ML? Machine learning. AI? Good show. Okay, let me give you a tongue twister. NLP. Yes, sir. Natural language processing, absolutely right. Many others would think neuro-linguistic processing, but you're right. That's natural language processing. So AI, ML, NLP, you know, have you heard of XR, extended reality, VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality, and a whole lot of jargons is what you'll get, all right? Now, most frequently, these tends to confuse us more than really solve the idea for us. And that was the case with me as well. When I started to get into this area and try to understand, when I was faced with a lot of these jargons, I said, I'm not a techie. And I can figure out even techies struggle with this because you guys are clearly also not as comfortable with these terms. So if I'm not a techie, how do I really understand the metaverse? So I looked around and I came across two, I would say, definitions which seem to make sense to me. So I would like to just share my screen and put that up for you. Just give me 1 second. All right, thank you. So, great. Here's the first one. It says it's an immersive extension of our lives enhanced by technology. Trust me, this is one of the simplest definitions I could come up with. So, immersive extension of our lives. What's immersive? Something that surrounds us, right? Real life is immersive. What we are experiencing right now is immersive. It's surrounding us, right? That's immersive. And how can technology extend this immersion? We will see that. But when that happens, then you're closer to the concept of metaverse. And the second thing it says, an interconnected world where physical and digital intertwine or fully converge. Now, if you see today, the digital world lives behind the screens, right? It lives behind our monitors. It lives behind these beautiful screens, etc. Physical world is right here. Today, as it stands, they do not intersect. But imagine a state when they do overlap. When that happens, we are closer to the realization of the mature metaverse. That's the real idea. So, in a way, I would like to explain to you how I understand it. I see it very simply. Um, Today we are on Netflix, right? Today we are on Zoom calls. Today we are on Google Meet. This is the current state of digital. But what if instead of being on Zoom, instead of being on Netflix, instead of being on Google Meets, what if you could be in? If you could be inside the Netflix, if you could be inside the meeting, that's what the metaverse is doing for us. So the digital world will not just exist behind the screen. In a Google or a Zoom meeting today, we are just passive observers, whereas real things, action is happening inside the screen. We are not inside. But the metaverse has the potential of taking us inside, making us active participants. Imagine the transformation, the shift. For the first time, we will truly engage, right? If now you are in a meeting on a Google or a Zoom meet, you don't have to necessarily engage. You can mute, you can freeze the screen, you can do whatever you like. But now you have a chance of really engaging like in the physical world. That's the difference that it's bringing in. And what would it really mean to the rest of us? As I see it, the entire transformation happens because until now, the whole concept is around storytelling, right? Movies are telling us a story. Internet, websites, everything is telling us a story. We are just passive consumers of content. Are you with me so far? When you go inside, you are entering the zone of story living, right? So the shift is from storytelling to story living. Imagine the transformation. And this is when I just think of it like this. A few of us, older generation in the audience, our idea of dinosaurs, all right, came from reading books. And we had a certain image and a picture of them. You ask our younger friends, they have watched Jurassic Park while they were growing up. And they had a very different idea of dinosaurs because they could associate with them. Now imagine if our youngsters had an opportunity to stand right next to a dinosaur, to actually see its size, scale, it all becomes alive, doesn't it? You're actually living the story. And that's what I meant when I'm saying the transition is now from storytelling to story living. Am I with you so far? Right? Now, what does that mean? Is that the way we experience is going to shift very fast, very soon. It's already happening around us. I'll show you a few examples. And since we are in this particular conference, which relates with maritime, this is also an industry that is going to be impacted. And if we are able to, let's say, unlock the potential, we could be literally running ahead of the race as compared to everyone else. So imagine when we are talking about story living, one of the, if you look at MRC's UDA framework, it talks about uh, conservation, marine habitats. What's a big challenge that we have when we are trying to explain to stakeholders who could be, literally decision makers, opinion makers, influencers, or even common people? The big challenge is they don't understand the world that we are trying to explain to them. Because for them, underwater is so far below, they've never seen it. And therefore, a whale getting stranded, they will say, why are the whales walking around or swimming around blindly? Right? They don't understand what it really means. Now imagine for the first time, you can actually take them into an environment where you can make them experience what it means to be in that particular ecosystem. And so I think when we are talking about actually creating stories, story living, that factor of empathy can be brought in extremely strongly if we are able to make this medium work for us better. And the other thing is also about digital oceans. I don't know enough of the concept, but I heard a little from Commander Saab and few of the guests, and such a powerful concept. You have data points, you have an understanding which can be digitally grasped about the ocean, the ecosystem, and the various enablers within it. Now, until now, it's still a mass of data. Imagine if you are able to translate the data into actual visualization. That's when the power of storytelling comes in. And that is what the metaverse or the new Web 3.0 technologies can deliver for us. In a similar way, I'm saying that when it comes to strategic consensus building, many a times, I think the challenge that many of our leaders face is ultimately a project is truly important, but you need to convince certain people in certain places that it truly matters. And again, here the factor of empathy comes in. If you're able to get them to understand what it really means to be inside a submarine, although they may not have ever stepped inside it, what it means to be on maybe a naval ship, for example, that's the time when they will understand the impact of what this decision can do for them, right? And in such cases, empathy can be built in much better if you have a compelling story, which is not just numbers, but actual visuals. This is where, again, you can take them into the metaverse. And the last part is about uh, attracting and curating talent. See, the thing is, I'll come to that later as well, but one of the great things is the young generation, they are closer to real world experiences, which happens through interactions, right? And if we are able to simulate that in the educational methodology, you make it easier for them to grasp things. Now, when an organization can embed that into the culture, it could be through the training, it could be through inductions, it could be through the way that you upskill and cross-skill them. You are actually being able to create a, a, a virtuous cycle of learning, which brings about a tremendous resonance across. Because if I have a company who takes care of me and talks to me in the language that I understand and I like, I would certainly make sure that I would get other people to also be in favor of it. So many times, when I was growing up, I used to see these big billboards, join the army. Later, we used to see these amazing campaigns, what's an adventure for normal people is everyday life for us. It really stirred something within us, Now imagine if you are actually able to take people into some of those beautiful experiences that you have, who would not want to step in there? So if you're looking at attracting talent, we have a huge potential in here. At a business side of things, it's changing the world very drastically. So you're building in experientials, narratives. You're moving away from the word showcasing it as examples. And true to my word as well, I will showcase it to you with examples very, very shortly from here on. You're also looking at immersive journeys. So what do I mean by that? Um, how many times have you wondered what it would be like, let's say, to go into some exotic space or to go into some exotic place and to figure out whether you'd like it or not? That's an example that is very much feasible now to step into that space and to go into that journey, to experience it before you decide whether you want to go for it or not, right? So these are the kind of possibilities that is getting unlocked. Product development is a new paradigm that is opening up in this business domain. I'll give you just a very small example. Um, we all know about Nike shoes, right? Now, did you know that Nike has got a department called Nike Digital? And Nike Digital only does NFT shoes, which means there is no physical shoe existing at all. It's only NFT, that is digital shoes. These are sold on the Roblox game or the Roblox platform. And take a guess, last year, how much of global Nike's revenue came from the Nike Digital? Anyone wants to take a guess? Do you think it's between 5 to 10% or more? More? 15, 20% or more? More. It's actually 25% of Nike's global revenue came from shoes which did not even exist. Now, how does it impact product management, you would ask? See, this is how it impacts. Nike understood that there's potential here. Why? Because if people are concerned about their image in the digital space, how they look in the digital space matter to them. Therefore, what they wear in that digital space also matters. So what they did is they said, now I'm going to open a platform in which if you are a creator, you can create a Nike branded shoe and sell it online on my platform. Now, this is where the game changes, okay? This is, until now, product development has always been a stage where the engineers or the developers actually develop the product. For the first time, you're getting people to develop the product. Can you imagine they're crowdsourcing product development? Now what happens? Nike guys are studying this. By studying the NFT patterns, they're easily able to understand how much is a customer willing to pay for which kind of shoes and which are the most popular models. No longer do you have to guess as a product designer, is this what my customer wants? You now have empirical feedback. This is the popularity of this particular model line. This is more or less the price that is getting paid online. All you need to now do is reverse engineer and make that shoe. So you see how product management, product development is completely turning on its head. And this is one of the small examples in which new value is being unlocked by players who are willing to experiment and try out new things at a daily level. So it requires a slightly different way of thinking. It requires us to experiment. It requires us to innovate. It requires us to take risks and say, okay, not everything will work, but those things that do, potentially within there might be certain hidden gold mines. So this is the way that this particular domain is unfolding itself. And in the space of employer branding as well, there are companies which are doing tremendous jobs. Accenture, for example, last year they launched their metaverse called One Accenture Park, in which it is their single metaverse for employee training. So any kind of training, you just put on your headsets and get in there. Now you might ask, would it really save money and time? The answer to that is yes. And I'll give you another example, which would very, very closely relate with, let's say, the services. The example is of Walmart. In 2018, Walmart had a big challenge. You see, they have this Black Friday sale. And that's the time when millions of customers flock all over Walmart stores because they want to buy. And they have to prepare specially entire staff to make sure they're ready and geared for this kind of a rush. How do they do this preparation? Until now, it was done by the physical training, which used to happen. This physical training would be an 8-hour long training, wherein they would be taken to the shop floor, they would be given theory, practicals, kind of hands-on learning, etc., etc. Now, what what Walmart did was to say that, hey, can we do this differently? Do you think virtual reality could come in? And they brought in a company who looked at the entire 8-hour long training and shrunk it to pure 15 minutes of virtual reality training. This was deployed, and Walmart rolled it out to 1 million of its employees. Now that's where the strength comes in. So if you roll it across 1 million of your training, you are definitely being questioned, what's my ROI? You spent a lot of money on developing a VR training. Is it really worth your time? When the HR head was questioned, she had a very simple answer to that. She said, until now, 1 million people getting trained is equal to 1 million man days spent in training. Now these 1 million people are doing it during their lunchtime, 15 minutes VR. I have directly saved 1 million man days. No further questions about ROI being asked. So what I'm trying to say is that if we are able to deep dive, there are very, very strong use cases that the metaverse is unveiling for us. And it definitely deserves a closer inspection. When you're creating this, I think one thing that I have realized as I was getting into it is there are two types of experiences which seem to be getting created, and they're diametrically different from each other. I call one as the surreal experiences, and the second I call as hyper real experiences. Surreal experiences are the ones which you'd see in entertainment and gaming related industries, where you want something that does not have any connection with the reality that we live and work in. So you could be flying, you could go on an anti-gravity dance floor, you could do various stuff which otherwise you'd never even imagine doing in a normal world. Now, this is where the gaming industry seems to find a fit. A lot of people who are targeting gamers in their business, which could be, for example, retail industries, they are the ones you will see who are using surreal experiences when they're designing and branding their metaverses. All right. The second path is the ones which are taken by serious organizations. You will see a lot of B2B companies. Accenture is a prime example, and several others. These are the ones who are looking at serious business getting conducted seriously over the metaverse. For them, it's not about building a planet on Mars. Sorry, that's a wrong thing. Building an ecosystem on Mars. All right? It's about creating an experience that replicates reality to the closest possible extent. That's hyper reality. So in the digital world, when I enter, if I feel a sense of deja vu, oh, I know this space, I know this place, I've been here, I can associate, I can understand, I can learn. Whatever learnings I'm acquiring, I can immediately apply it in my contextual scenarios when I step out of this zone. That's the hyperreal environment. Hyperreal environments are getting increasingly used in training, education. Although they're gamified, it's more of points-based gamification rather than taking you to outer space. Yeah? So hyperreal experiences are the ones that, from a serious business application point of view, we find there is tremendous potential and it's relatively unexplored. So therefore, we felt that when we created our company's metaverse, we will bring in hyperreal experiences. And I've got a small, like a 30-second clip about what we have created on the hyperreal side of things to show you. But we also have the Oculus, the headset, and I have my colleague with me who will be actually able to take you into that hyperreal experience. Because trust me, what you see on screen is just 5% of the real experience. You're still seeing it on screen. When you put it on the VR glasses, you are actually within that environment and you must experience it because that's truly when you'll realize the power of what we are dealing with. So just an example of the hyperreal experiences that we are looking at.
With hyperreality, you can now get intimate with your fans and audiences. Take your fans right into your office, your brand museum, and your facility. Let them discover your world. Let them walk in your shoes. And let them experience your brand in first person. And when it comes to first-person experiences, nothing is more vital than launch of your product. After all, this is the moment that your customers, fans, media and your internal colleagues look forward to. What if your fans could see in first person how your new product looks? With hyperreal experiences, every single detail of your launch product can now come to life and can be experienced in first person. We can even go beyond, and with technical integrations, your best product manager can be there 24/7. Every single visitor can have a personal explanation about the features, the benefits, and the aesthetics of your product. Love what you see? Do you want to book it right now? Sure. We can enable payment integration with regular currency or crypto, all within your very own branded Metaverse home. This is the kind of superior customer experience that hyperreality can enable for your brand in the Metaverse. Why stop there? Why not invite them into your factory too? A virtual factory tour inside your Metaverse is an experience second to none. This is your opportunity. Show them how you care. Let them learn, have fun, and bond within your environment. And as you make them a part of your story, they too will return your love with their trust and loyalty. Hyperreality. An exciting start for your brand journey.
So that was about what we mean by hyperreality. One thing you may have realized is you do not see cartoon-looking avatars. What you are seeing were very realistic-looking people. What we were trying to present was not just a digitally created environment, but an environment that simulates real reality. What you saw as the factory tour, you can even imagine it could be a tour of any particular location, site, or installation. And this is the kind of potential that you unlock when you're actually able to literally transport your facilities to the doorstep of your customers or stakeholders. So this is a very powerful possibility that the metaverse is able to unlock, unfold for us. It's also changing the way that work is getting done. And we are seeing that in a time when a lot of companies are struggling with work from home and remote workforce, the challenge that companies have is in developing a company culture, right? So what's really the company culture? If you ask yourself, in a way, it is the fact that when you meet each other, you have a camaraderie. When you talk to each other, there are certain nuances that develop, which are like a family resemblance, depicting a particular organization and the way it operates and engages with people. This is what gets lost when you have completely disintegrated pure digital working spaces. Now, what we've seen is if you're looking at meeting and collaboration spaces within the metaverse, yes, it does not come as close to real reality like all of us sitting together here, but it does come very close to it. And as we are seeing it, there are some very interesting stuff that is happening, which is going to, let's say, leapfrog um, adoption in a very near future. The first I would think of as miniaturization as a trend. What you're seeing here is the world's first augmented reality contact lenses, which have been developed. This came up last year and is due for series production next year. So imagine this is also having its own battery power backups. So in a way, perhaps we are not very far away when we would not need big devices like the ones that we have. And perhaps we could easily achieve the same objectives just with smart glasses or even contact lenses. When that happens, you're literally one step away from actually then converging the physical and the digital together. If you recall, initially we said one of the visions of the mature metaverse is when we are able to merge or when we are able to bring closer together the physical and the digital worlds, which until today they exist in a very separate dimension, but they might be coming together. These are some of the areas, these are some of the kinds of developments that are bringing it together. And they are hitting series production very soon. So what we are seeing is that there's a lot of traction that is developed towards online. COVID has, of course, been a huge boost in that direction. The subscription of Zoom, the take rate of Zoom itself is an example. In the first 4 months, from 200, so from 10 million, they went up to 200 million. And it's not because Zoom did something dramatically different to change the experience. Zoom remained the same. It's just that users had no option but to go in with video conferencing because they needed to collaborate. Now imagine if instead of a sterile environment, you have a real opportunity of meeting people in a space that is three-dimensional and actually engaging with them. That transforms work. And the example of it would be our own company. We've transformed our entire organization into a virtual organization. I've got this gentleman, Himanshu, whom I'm meeting after almost 6 months, because we meet every day in the metaverse and we work together. We've got colleagues from all over the country who are contributing. So in a way, you unlock the potential, the human potential, you overcome geographic challenges, and you enable people to operate in an environment that they feel comfortable in. These are some of the advantages which we are able to look at when we are looking at, let's say, collaboration in the metaverse. And that's an example which I would like to share with you in this next very small, short clip.
What do you miss the most during Zoom meetings? Is it the side talk, sharing jokes and laughter, or the ability to project onto a big screen, or to ideate together in a shared space? Our huddle room combines the best of physical and virtual meetings, with various enhancements to make meetings lively and fun, even for remote working professionals. It's not just fun. You can do much more in metaverse meeting spaces. For detailed discussions and project briefs, our whiteboard and post-its are remarkable. Now you can efficiently showcase your ideas, color code your post-its, include images in briefing documents, and assign tasks to team members. You can also choose from a vast array of additional options to make your project planning seamless. Every moment of your workday can now be more productive in this immersive space. Our meeting and collaboration solutions have been successfully used for complex, multi-geography, remote management by professionals across the globe. For brainstorming, larger gatherings, or even virtual team buildings, take a look at the collaboration spaces. Here, you can set your preferred ambient music, You can showcase your video projects for everyone to see your creative side. What's more, you can even live stream your board meetings into the live feed wall. While it need not be all work, no
It's
play.
Monday, November 20th.
If you wish, you can together watch your favorite news channel on livecast, or even cheer your favorite soccer team, all within your own metaverse. Say goodbye to boring meetings. Say hello to metaverse collaboration.
So imagine doing a team building in the metaverse. We've actually done that reasonably successfully. You just need to be familiar with the controls and the navigation keys. And once you have a sense of that, it becomes quite interesting to actually try that out. So we've done that. And that's the idea when we came up with our business park. We said that as we talk to people, we need to be able to show to them what are the kind of experiences that Metaverse can offer. We put all of those use cases into one particular zone in our Metaverse, which is called as the Experience Center. So once you enter the Experience Center, you'll be able to see right from factory tours, huddle rooms, meetings, collaboration spaces, trainings, product launches. You can actually replicate, and we have replicated an entire event auditorium into the metaverse. So you can literally have 1,000 people simultaneously attending an event in the metaverse. And this is the first zone which we created. The second area is to showcase to brands, how can you project yourself as an organization? So for example, when we step into a corporate office, you have a lobby where you usually see perhaps stuff about the organization, the way that it has grown, the awards it has won, etc., etc. So this is a similar space we created, which we call as the brand center, which showcases how brands can showcase or how brands can project themselves in the metaverse. And the third area is a sort of a cool zone we created because, all said and done, metaverse is targeted at a slightly younger audience as well. Where in this cool zone we've created, we call it as a social zone, which is like a meeting space you can invite and hang out with your friends in the corporate metaverse as well. We've got NFTs, we've got collectibles, we've got a little lounge bar kind of a setting where you can hang out. We've even got an anti-gravity dance floor put up there. So if you want to be like just, chilling out for a while, you have a space where you can go and hang out in there. So this is the way that we've tried to create and showcase the possibilities that the metaverse can offer. And the next, what I'm sharing is a very small film about these three zones because it makes it easier to see it in here. And then perhaps whoever is interested, we have the metaverse also and the Oculus headset. You can actually step inside. That's truly where the real experience lies. So this is how you enter the metaverse.
Business Park. Here, you can learn about our metaverse experiences for commercial organizations. If you are a corporate leader wanting to learn how the metaverse can support your business goals, you have come to the right place. Our business park has 3 zones. The first is the brand center. Here you learn how you can showcase your corporate brand and your future metaverse home. The second zone is the social center. Think of it like a really cool zone within your business metaverse. Here, you can invite customers and visitors and engage with them in a relaxed ambience. The third zone is our experience center. This is the heart of your metaverse inspiration. Here, you can actually see for yourself how brand Kiln is helping companies like yours to pivot their business. Now, you can transform your sales and customer experience. You can enable team collaboration and learning, and you can augment your business operations. The Brand Kiln Experience Center shows you how it can be done. Let our global expertise power your business experiences.
So it's okay, Himanshu. I think we can do that later, yeah. So coming back to the framework of UDA. Now that we have seen the potential of the various ways in which the metaverse is being used, perhaps it's a good idea for us to look at the UDA framework and just, get a sense of where all do we see it being applied. To begin with, I think when it comes to national security, I believe the fact that we are having this conference here, using the internet, using cryptography, using computers, is because it has been leapfrogged by the innovations brought about by the defense and security services. So I don't think there's any way anything can come even remotely close to what they are doing in that domain. But perhaps when it comes to showcasing it, kind of building consensus, potentially there could be some opportunities there to look at. That's just my sense of things. Blue economy in the oil and gas industry or in the wind parks and various others, they are already getting into the metaverse. A large amount of trainings and simulations are already getting done in this particular domain. And they are also actively looking at creating, many of them are looking at creating something like a Netflix of training. So imagine if you are to enter a particular space, you take an assessment, you can understand which are your learning gaps or learning goals. You deliver, you take certain projects and you do certain trainings. You can then have literally a voice interview. We've integrated Chat GPT as well with context. So you can actually have a very interactive assessment done, which also tells you, are there further areas which you would want to focus on? And in that way, a learning path that is unique to every person can be created. This is already getting done. So I feel this is a very strong area where we have got potential. Marine environment, I think, again, to, to, to really help people visualize what it is when we talk about underwater pollution, what it is when we talk about noise pollution and the impact. Nothing can be more powerful than a story that is told visually. And if you're able to take your audience into that ambience, I think that will be the most powerful effect. So this is an area where there's tremendous potential in whatever I can sense. Science and research, definitely, like we were talking about the example of Nike in Roblox, product management, product development. Various companies are already working on these. Simulations have been on since the longest period of time. And it's based on the kind of achievements or use cases that you wish to pursue. But there is a lot of potential that is also getting explored in these spaces. So I think overall, this is where I believe the opportunities seem to be shaping up. All in all, if you see, the market is moving at a very strong pace. Metaverse as a concept is developing very fast. As an industry, it is supposed to grow at a CAGR of nearly 45% between now and 2030. Now, I don't know about you, but there are very few industries I can think of which can even come close to a CAGR of 45%, 40 or 45%. And that only goes to show the potential that this area might have for us. And this is again driven by technology and the way that it's bringing us closer to intuitively how we as humans interact. This kind of an experience is the closest that can be enabled in the digital space, in a remote space within the metaverse. So that's the way that I believe the world is heading towards. I feel that we are right in the very early stages. There would be a lot of crypto winters and blockchain summers and what have you not. But through this, as we've seen even with the previous emerging technologies, it does undergo the maturity curve. And then we reach a stage when there is a mass adoption. I feel as leaders, organizations, and students who are stepping into the future, the question is not about, is the metaverse going to be the future? The question is about, are we willing to ride the wave? You see, as I see it, the web is evolving, the web is emerging. The last time that it had undergone such a transformation, companies like Google, Netflix, Amazon, they went on from being DVD rental companies and booksellers to names that are synonymous with the internet today. We are on the crux of such a pivotal change once again. And I feel that as organizations, it's us to ask ourselves, are we wanting to step in, ride the wave, and emerge as potential leaders of tomorrow? Or would we be waiting in the sidelines until the tide is so big that it carries us along and we don't have any chance but to, kind of slide in there and try to figure our way around? Early movers do have an advantage in this space. If we are able to do it right, experiment and ride the wave, I believe there is good potential for us all. I would like to end my chat here, and any questions, thoughts, comments, I would love to welcome them. Thank you. Yes, we've got Himanshu here. Hi, Himanshu. So my young friend, he is also my tech mentor in a way, a cloud engineer, and he does a great job at configuring our metaverses. So anybody who would like to actually experience it, please come. We've got the VR headset, and we can actually take you inside not just our metaverse, but something that we are developing for a client, um, which would be very interesting when you actually see it in the VR space. So please, you're welcome. And in the meantime, I'm open to any questions, comments, thoughts at all.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
What a wonderful vision, sir. I fully agree with you. And it could only come from someone who is a veteran like yourself. I mean, Arnabji has also spent, I think, equal amount of time in the water, but
Captain, about 3 years back, one of the big consulting firms had reached out to me. There was a proposal for building submarine tourism. Okay, there are already 23 places where it's happening as of now. But that's about, just taking them down and either in a submarine or something which looks like a submarine or a capsule when it goes down. But what I advised them was, there was an investor in Dubai who wanted to put some 1,500 crores or something like that. The problem in the Indian waters is that, it is not accessible throughout the year. Many places you can't dive. And second is the visibility for various reasons. So my suggestion to them was that you create, because see, you have to do a cost analysis also. So what is most optimum? So what I suggested was that, we go down, we have a structure which looks like a submarine, but it is also augmented with virtual reality. And we create, as MRC, we are in the process of generating underwater domain awareness in every sense of the word, as you said. One is the entire ecosystem in the sense, and when I say ecosystem, the ecological aspect, what is the flora and fauna in that area. But also, certain other things, the experience of waves hitting you or whatever else that can be as like we were talking about the digital clone kind of a thing, to, like what Vijay was discussing yesterday also, that is another very important component of it. So as we go forward, it has to be a real life experience. And so, even if you do it, because there has to be, if you have to because we have to look at every aspect. Now, if you say 1,000 rupees ticket, taking people down, if you make it too high, you lose the market. Technology can make it, like as Manas said, 1 million people can experience it. So once you create that, so many people can, but how many seats can you, have inside that? So we had a very long discussion on that. And, I mean, Manas is a very close friend and we are discussing various aspects. But this is definitely in our mind. But we have to create a lot more, information. Like I was in Brest, they had an aquarium where they had 3 different types of sections. One is the local. What is the local ecosystem there? They created that. Then they also created a tropical ecosystem there. And they also created a little more, going a little north, what kind of. So, but that requires a lot more real inputs to be able to create it. But what you mentioned is absolutely important. And so there are many things that can be done. One is right at the training level, like, I mean, yours will be far more specialized, far more specific. But even for a general public, if you want to make children very conscious of the environment, something like this will be absolutely an amazing thing. And, that whole maritime consciousness or consciousness of the ocean can be done in a very different level. Like if I talk about underwater noise, it's very easy to say that, it affects marine mammal. But don't you think a virtual experience like this, that how bad it is, will really bring that consciousness that something needs to be done very, very quickly. So there is absolutely, unimaginable possibilities here. But we are, I mean, Manas and we are definitely looking at a few things. But there is a lot more possibility. I mean, I feel we also have to create a lot more information, which I have to share with him, that when he can really put it in this platform. But definitely there's a huge amount of potential. Even something like this, I mean, we have discussed that creating a workshop, virtual workshop on Metaverse. But it requires, I mean, I think the whole audience will appreciate that, this is, which is going to be the final experience. But to reach that level or to be able to give that experience, there is so much other inputs that are required. Like what Vijay mentioned yesterday, there is so much input we have to really create there to be able to give him that kind of content where he can convert it into the experience component of it. So I think there is a lot of possibilities, and that's one of the reasons that, we wanted to give you a more, diverse spectrum of possibilities, and we can. So this is definitely very important, and right from training to actual kind of experience, we can look at it.
Sir, and I mean, like what you rightly said, in underwater domain, it is only seeing. I mean, whatever you see, that is what you believe, sir. Seeing is believing. And nobody has actually seen the underwater domain. Absolutely. So if you have a metaverse like this and you're able to get those things into visual reality, so I think there's nothing more better thing to do than this.
Very compelling story it does tell. Yes, sir.
True, sir.
No, so definitely it's a strong part of our high priority agenda. But we need to kind of put a lot of things in place before, but certainly it is a strong part of our agenda. Yep. One second, just use the mic because, yeah.
Sir, do we have, per se, sir, overall, Indian area, sir, existing simulator kind of thing where the training can be provided to the defense forces personnel regarding virtual imagination and imaginatory world about underwater domain per se.
Underwater, I am not sure, but the simulators are available. I mean, Navy itself is using a pilot simulator is there, and Navy is using it for a long time. Sir. And I think as technology progresses, the upgrades will bring it to a far better thing. But Navy has been using, I mean, I was in Goa, so I know it's been there many years back. And I think every iteration it is getting upgraded to whatever is the. See, technology is moving very fast. I'm sure you'll appreciate.
Yes, sir.
And so virtual reality itself has transformed from a different level to what it is today. So, but underwater, I'm not too sure. But we are definitely looking at that direction in a very. I mean, if you look at MRC and NDT as their agenda, I mean, the underwater space, we want to be there in as many dimensions and as many levels as possible. So definitely we are looking at it on all levels.
But I meant to say like we are sitting here right now, and if I want to visualize and I want to see the underwater terrain while sitting here, so that I can imagine and I can plan something for that, like military operations or something like that. So, is there any kind of machines, professional individuals, or the simulators, or that particular training aid which is held or which is available, which can be brought in, which can be established, or which can be impart into our training module, so that the people will be getting facilitated with that particular stream, sir, so that they will be.
The answer is yes. I mean, in the Navy, we have the war gaming which goes on. I mean, ASTT and various other where war games are played by, the people who are into. So there it is used. May not be to the level that it is. So, I mean, I was involved in this project in 2004.
Sir.
The Vizag thing, we gave some inputs on, there it was far more simpler where, you can just compute the kinematics and, various other things. But that, I'm sure Navy has also upgraded a lot. I'm not privy to what is happening there. But I mean, these organizations, they have a very well-structured system of upgradation. And as technology moves forward, they keep pace with it. So what you are saying, it is very much possible. I mean, theoretically, we have everything. It is just that, we need to sit
Implement on
together,
ground.
sit together and see, whenever we develop something like this, the user input is extremely critical. I can imagine something and give it to you, but then it has to evolve over a period of time because your requirements will be specific.
Yes, sir.
I mean, Army requirement or Navy requirement, or even in the Navy, if you look at, I mean, I may not be able to talk too much about Army, but little bit what I know about Navy is that even in the Navy, the requirements are very different.
Sir.
So so the user per se will have to give us a little bit inputs, and we can definitely customize. And what I'm proudly telling you is that it is our own software.
Yes, sir. That's what indigenous software.
Indigenous,
Yes,
so
sir.
it is not a canned solution. Sometimes when we import, we get stuck with the canned solution, but here it is our own thing.
Exactly, sir.
So if on the fly you tell me, this is, I'm not happy with this, I need this, we can easily, customize
Transform
it
and
to
change
your
it.
requirement.
Yes.
And probably, as a user, you'll have to bear with us maybe about a year or so when it will evolve.
Understood, sir.
Because see, if I tell you write and give it to me, you'll not be able to give it to me because, it has to evolve with
Exactly,
a
yes,
little
sir.
thing. I'll give you something. The first draft will come to you. You will have an experience and then it will go. But today, what I want to tell you is that this kind of possibilities are there
Understood, sir.
where it is going to be far more easier. It is, already a framework is available. So then, it becomes much more easier to kind of build it up. Yes, of course, it will require a bit of domain knowledge because, how the tropical conditions will behave, what are the specifics of the site-specific inputs that are required, which, so as far as we are concerned, we have, partners, or we can all work together.
We have
to
infrastructure.
deliver what
We
is
have
required.
specialist professionals.
Yes,
that
no,
only.
everything is indigenously available today. That is my assurance to you. And these kind of things, I think no other country other than India can give it to you.
Understood, sir.
That is definitely, I mean, we don't need to worry about this being available. And particularly when we talk about, our defense services,
Yes.
having it indigenously is the most critical aspect. So that is very much possible and very much available.
Thank you, sir.
Just to add to that, there's a big. I visited the simulation center of the army in Hyderabad. Yeah, they have a very big center, and I mean, I'd gone there years back, and it was quite an interesting visit. With the army, it's an army simulation center.
MCME is having that, yes.
In Hyderabad. Hyderabad, Sikandrabad. I mean, it's there. I visited it myself.
So I believe the simulation domain itself would potentially undergo a drastic change, especially with the kind of miniaturization of devices that I was sharing with you. Imagine if things are, earlier we used to have this, what we saw here, the Oculus. In the earlier days, it used to be like a big helmet which is hooked onto a computer. Back in the times when we were doing Nintendo games, right? And now you see it's all available just in one small eyepiece. And potentially we are looking at just a contact lens. So I can imagine even these kind of leapfrogging of technology will very soon change the way even simulation gets done. Maybe you need less centers and more devices very soon, potentially. So yes, like Arnabji mentioned, technology changes are sometimes very quick, sometimes happening in silos. And many times, organizations are also challenged because the previous way of working with, let's say, vendors is you look at their track record, you look at how many years they've served, what kind of clients they've had. Whereas in this new emerging world, it would be a company who's probably 6 months old who will be able to deliver something path-breaking, which a 60-year-old company may not be able to deliver. So there are some paradigms that we ourselves also need to kind of rethink in this emergent domain. That's my take on it.
No, see, I mean, to create something which we are talking about here will require, and I think we are in a very exciting time today. See, what he is talking about will require massive computational backend support. And today, those things are probably 5 years back, we couldn't have been doing a lot of things. So, I mean, if you look at the way we have structured this whole workshop, you had an exposure to what is high performance computing. And, now, and there is also a competing thing, quantum might be competing with that. And so sometimes, you as a client don't have to get the best. You have to get what is optimum. So then you need somebody to piece it together for you, understand. So that's where the domain understanding is very important. That, what is your specific requirement? Like now, like Metaverse is the whole aspect of simulation and virtual reality is in a more structured form. It has matured. I mean, that aspect itself is matured to an extent that, it is now becoming far more easier to kind of put things together. And easier means that you will get far better features and far better kind of delivery at what you want. And since it will be done in-house, we can, customize it to an extent that, like when you start seeing it, you'll learn and you will demand. Typically in many of our government contracts, what happens is, you fix something in the beginning, but then there is no scope for you to learn and demand something more because, the budget has been fixed. So that's what Manas also is mentioning that, and the second aspect is, many of these new things will have to be done by the startup ecosystem, where, the agility is the most important thing. I mean, the bigger groups bring endurance. If it requires, like if you say, no, I want this, they can pump in a little bit of money and take a bit of loss for that particular project, but they will make money in the bigger one. So that is the larger, the advantage of a large firm. But the new things will have to be done by agile companies or agile entities like smaller groups. So that's where, a bit of, it has to evolve with all of us sitting together and finding, something which suits everybody. Yep. Anybody else? Any questions?
Good morning. Hello. So right now you had shown us the VR headset, right? But when it comes to movement, so if we were to use this for the training or even gaming purpose, so instead of walking, so I had seen there are responsive chairs which you can sit on while wearing these VR headsets, and but that would be applicable for like a driving simulator or something. But for a complete gaming experience, there are there's something proposed which are suspended cables. So a person basically is like kind of floating in midair. So that gives more movement. So is that something you are working on, or is it like a future plan of yours?
So that's the citizen of our future. Thank you for this wonderful question. Um, I would like to just clarify one thing here. The focus that we have, Kiln and me personally, because I'm also pursuing a PhD on the metaverse area, is about how do you create a user experience that delivers what we as an organization want from the user. What am I trying to say? It's something like this. Look at a website or anything else. You have an objective that you wish to achieve. It may be like, it may be hit, it may be download, it may be subscribe, it may be buy. You have certain things that you expect as a desired outcome from the user after completing that experience. Dropout is when this user gets distracted and he does something else which you as a brand have not accounted for or you do not want him to do. Now, this is a studied phenomenon in terms of, let's say, cognitive load balancing and theories. As it's a studied phenomenon in the normal physical world and in the digital world, which is Web 2.0, which exists behind the screen. In the virtual world, which is a three-dimensional space in the digital world, this is a relatively new phenomenon because it is a rather recent development, not much research has gone in. So what we are trying to do is to understand how do I place objects and create an experience that will allow you as a user to complete the journey and achieve the desired objective with least distraction. So how do I balance distraction versus attention is the focus that we are looking at. Technology is an enabler. Like Arnabji mentioned, technology is rapidly changing and upgrading. But what will remain constant is the need for curated experience. Because at the end of the day, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So we want to make sure that we are able to deliver what the experience is needing to deliver. What you said about technology, we are not into that high level because frankly, we cannot afford it. We are a startup, we are bootstrapping still. But there are certain companies we are connected with which are doing this. And a great example would be HoloSuit, Singapore-based company run by an Indian. Incredible, they have developed an entire body armor wherein even if in virtual reality you're swimming, you can literally feel the waves rushing past you, the ripples going by you. That's the level of engagement we are talking about, which is coming in the tactile sense. Smell has already been replicated in the virtual world very recently, last I think about a couple of months back, and various other sensations. So what we are looking at is in silos, there are already developments happening which are bringing this reality in the digital space very, very close to what we experience in physicality. The next step is convergence, putting them together, which is difficult, but on its way because we are already seeing that happen. So I believe, yes, what you're mentioning as the suspended cables is already something that we've heard about. I've not experienced it, but I'm damn keen to experience it myself. HoloSuit would perhaps be the next level because then you can literally take it to any place and not just inside a simulator. And I'm pretty sure that there would be other innovations. We are very interestingly poised at this point of time, which will change the entire dynamics. Just like the AR contact lenses. I mean, who could have imagined you could get this complete thing out, plug in your contact lenses, and you're seeing a different world, merger of virtuality and physicality. So I think these would be the kind of innovations that we will see in the future. Just my take on that.
No, I think if I can add, Manas, to that, what I would recommend or request any entity, I mean, I'm not just specifically talking about defense, any entity, or I can only talk about the underwater component of it. The user has to first look at what he needs. Many times what we see is somebody comes with a product and then you figure out how I can use the product. In larger organizations, I think that approach will have to change. And as Manas said, there are today a lot which is available. And as I also mentioned, that you don't need the best, you need what you require. And if you do not define what you require, somebody will give you something he has. And then you will be required to figure out how to use it. And bits and pieces, so much is available today. So if you figure out what you need, if you make the canvas, so many components, there are so many, not just startup, there are so many entities in India which are doing business outside of India, far more. There are companies I know, they are doing 90% business, defense companies which are doing 90% business outside of India. And they are more than keen to work with ourselves, with our own entities. So as a user, you'll have to broadly look at what is it that you need. Once you decide what you need, then you'll have to put a lot of, but I'm not blaming anybody. Even our procurement procedures will have to change in a manner that, it is able to bring that together. Prafulji is here, just in time inventory management. He's one of the pioneers in India. And at some point, I would probably, even during tea or if we have time here, it was more of a legal innovation than anything else. Can you imagine what I'm trying to say? Because the laws of the country or certain aspects did not permit that to happen. So whether it is DPP or anything else, it was not DPP what he was dealing with. But he advised them on that particular thing, and once that got sorted out, a whole lot of change happened. Because till then, just in time, people said, "वो Japanese आ गए, ये आ गए, वो आ गए, नहीं हमारे इधर नहीं चलता है." It is the different way of looking at the problem which gave the solution. So that is something we need to really appreciate. So when we find when we need a solution, and if you look at this whole series of workshops, we have tried to touch upon various aspects just to broaden your thinking so that you think differently. Is that okay? So I think I'll request Manas to, some of you may come forward, and because this is something, different experience.
Oh, you must really.
I think you must
Please.
definitely have a look at this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to day 3 of workshop number 2. Today we have a very eminent speaker, Shri Avinash Mishra, Senior Advisor at the NITI Aayog, looking after water resource management. Sir has a master's degree from IIT and a lot of experience. Avinash sir, we always request our speaker to kindly give us a little briefing on their journey, both personal and professional. And I will request you to do that. But I would just like to brief you on what this workshop has been about. So this is a series of 3 workshops. In fact, 4. First one was on policy. We had policymakers from across diverse domains, globally, nationally, and locally also. We've had the Secretary General of the Intergovernmental Ocean Commission addressing the participants. We also had India's ambassador to Paris, Shri Javed Ashraf. We also had Ambassador Anup Mudgal, who was involved in the drafting of the, in fact, Ambassador Javed Ashraf from PMO then and Anup Mudgal sir in Mauritius have been part of the whole Sagar Vision drafting. We also had Secretary Capacity Building Commission, Shri Himang Jani, who came down to Pune and spent 2 days with us, also addressed the participants. There was a lot of discussion on various aspects of how to take the UDA forward in terms of sensitizing the entire government machinery for policy making and how to also induct UDA as one of the important component in the policy making. Then we have had other experts. We've had Professor Anamika Barua from IIT Guwahati. She's an expert in politics and economics. That dimension is equally important. Then in this session of technology, we've had people talking about high performance computing, quantum computing. The session before you today was on Metaverse. We've had various other people, domain experts, also talking about various subjects. So I will hand over to you, sir, and request you to kindly make your presentation, sir.
Good morning to all. And I think about my introduction is Dr. Arnab Das has already handed over that responsibility to me. So kindly bear with me with my introduction. I'm an engineer in background and have served 5 years in the through engineering services in the government of India in the Ministry of Jal Shakti, and thereafter again through UPSC got into the then Planning Commission and served there till it got formed to NITI Aayog. I had been in the water sector, environment, natural resources sector from the beginning, and so far I have traveled the journey of around 32 to 33 years of my service in the government. I have come all across the developmental scenario and our progress in the country regarding water resources sector, which is starting from 8th plan, 9th plan, 10th plan, 12th plan, and thereafter 13th plan, which could not take the shape because of the changeover. And then now actually again serving as advisor. So now as the today's topic for discussion is freshwater ecosystem and challenges. So I will take you through the water resources, freshwater resources in the country, as it is a general thinking that we are really blessed with abundant water resources. So we will see in our slides whether we have been blessed or not comparative to global scenario. If we say the total freshwater ecosystem, this is critical part of global water cycle. Then we receive the water through rainwater or through precipitation, which is in the form of surface water, groundwater, and as we receive the precipitation, it is in the form of frozen water. So sustainable management of the freshwater ecosystem, tackling the climate change impacts are crucial. Means we should able to manage the water which we are receiving naturally. We should be able to use only that much quantum of water. That is the only way out to survive it for long. Now actually to see, we are receiving around 4,000 billion cubic meter of the total rainfall, precipitation, hailstorm or snowfall all put together. And the available water out of this is around 2,1999 BCM, and per capita water availability comes out to 1390 cubic meter. If we actually divide with our population, with the total, what is the utilizable water resources, then it is like that. And 1140 BCM is the water which is utilizable. Surface water it is 690 billion cubic meter and groundwater is around 450 billion cubic meter. Now, actually moving forward, we'll see the India's water scenario, how we are actually consuming the water. So around 90 to 91% of water is being consumed in irrigation sector. Municipal, we are consuming around 7% and 2% only for industry. If we see other countries' scenario, China, for instance, because we are very much comparable with China in terms of their population and they being our neighbor, you will find that 64.4% of irrigation they are utilizing in irrigation and 22.3% for industry and 13.2% for the municipal supply. We can directly see the comparison of the two. The industry's share of the China is so high, and that's why it is China is being said even today the factory of the world. Let us come to see the Brazil, because they are really very much conservative in case of the water uses. Their use for irrigation is 58%, industry 16%, and municipal 26%. In case of Israel, 51.6% in irrigation, municipal 44%, and industry 4.4%. So this is what actually the scenario. Now some other facts. Contribution of groundwater is nearly 63% in irrigation, 85% rural water supply, and 50% urban water supply. Means here the prominent source of water supply in India is only groundwater. Our international trade is contributing to large quantities of virtual water lost through the export of water intensive crops, whether it is through in the form of the rice what we are exporting, or the other intensive crops, or the manufacturing goods which we are exporting, that all has got the virtual water footprint. Water use efficiency in agriculture is around 38%. Means the water which is stored in the reservoirs, and finally the water which is being used by the plants, it is only 38%. The rest 62% we are losing as an evaporation, transmission, distribution losses and all. Whereas in 50 to 60% in Israel, Japan, China and Taiwan. In these countries, this is the efficiency. Agriculture consumes, as we have already learned, that around 91% of total water resources. Only 283 billion cubic meter of water out of the 690 BCM of the surface is stored. Means so far we could store only 41%. And as we all know, there is no further possibility of storage, because there are the environmentalists, there are many problems associated with this, maybe the rehabilitation, resettlement and all. Let us see the global comparison. So the water productivity. Water productivity means 1 meter cube of water, how much US dollar it is giving. If we are using that water in UK, it is giving 281.1 US dollar per meter cube. And in Angola, Singapore, and Brazil, all is 21.2 US dollar per meter cube. But in India, it is 1.9 meter cube per US dollar. Means we are so inefficient user of water. See, what is the per capita water storage available? So USA per capita water storage available is 5961 cubic meter per capita, Australia 4717, Brazil 3388, China 2486, and India it is merely 190 cubic meter per capita. Now, as we are so much dependent on groundwater, let us see what is the position in the groundwater. So India is abstracting the groundwater 250 at the rate of 251 billion cubic meter per year, whereas China 112, US 112, and all other two less. But if we put China and US together, then also the total is not that much beyond which we are extracting. Means we are extracting more than the both put together. So 1/3 of generated wastewater is treated in our country. Let us see what is the wastewater generation. All we will see afterward. Now the climate changes, we are all seeing that climate change is going to impact and all. So many TV and the media coverage is there. But let us see where we are in case of the climate change. India ranked 7 out of 180 countries with a climate risk indicator. Score is 16.67 in the global climate risk. So out of 180 countries, we are the 7th most vulnerable country in the globe. India's annual average temperature is increasing at a statistically significant rate of 0.61 degrees centigrade per 100 years. And it has been observed by our IMD that from 1901 to 2019, there is a rise of temperature of 0.61 degrees centigrade. And most of the Himalayan glaciers are retreating, and rate of retreat have probably accelerated in the past few decades. Now what happens to the rainfall? So Indian Meteorological Department data shows an average decline of 1 centimeter in monsoon annually. So there is a decline. Shortage of 1 centimeter means reduction of 25 billion cubic meter or 30 billion cubic meter of water. Furthermore, emphasize how much is this quantum of water, because it may not be possible for every individual to generalize the quantum of water. So this is which can meet domestic water demand of 600 million people, that is 60 crore population with 135 liter per person per day. So this much water is already not coming to us now. So this is the scenario. Now let us see if in case water scarcity happens, then what will happen. We are thinking of turning ourselves to a $5 trillion economy. Water scarcity and irresponsible use of natural resources also has an impact on economic growth. It means whether it is possible to really touch the $5 trillion. 50% of world's workforce, that is about 1.5 billion people, are dependent and employed in one of the 8 water and natural resources dependent industries. Water scarcity aggravated by climate change could cost some regions up to 6% of their GDP. And as per the study, it shows that in India, property related violence increases by about 4% when there is a below average rainfall. So it affects the crops and all sorts of property related issue then comes up. And communal rights become more frequent following episodes of floods and the scarcity losses. Now let us see what are the challenges in case we have seen that the position is very grim. We cannot say that the water is very abundant in the country, but let us see. So challenges in distributing the limited water, whereas we need to give the priority to the drinking water, then food security, agriculture, then industry, ecological flow, and domestic. So these are all competing demands. We cannot say this is less, that is more. So this is again a big challenge to distribute it. We need to do this much with a sustainable development. And how much water is 1140 billion cubic meter. Now let us see what is the groundwater situation. So there was an assessment carried out, and out of the assessment block of 7,000 and something, 67% are those which are safe. Except this, there are blocks, those are semi-critical, which have been exploited, more than 70, less than 90, some are 90 to 100, and some are more than 100. So that way, we can say we need to be very cautious while using the groundwater. Now, growing demand in water supply. So, in what way actually the demand is rising and the water is met with the supply? If we see by 2008, something the supply is around 650 billion cubic meter, but demand was not that much. In case of 2030 scenario, if we go with business as usual way, means the 90% water is being used or in the irrigation sector, in the agriculture sector, and we are not very efficient water user, all transmission distribution losses are happening. For instance, in case of Delhi, around 45% transmission distribution losses is there. In case of Mumbai also, in major cities you will find the leaking water, the water bills are not being paid and everything, and the water supplied and water reached to the consumers, there's a big gap in that. So if that happens, then by 2030, the demand will exceed by a factor of 2. So substantial increase incidence of water-related disaster causing deepening of water crisis and floods at some places, erosion and droughts on other places. This all is likely to happen. Now let us see, in case if the water stress and scarcity, what is the position? Because we say that we have got all perennial river and we have got some other river. Let us see the river position. India has 9 river basins housing a population of 87.7 crore will go water scarce by 2025. The per capita water availability is calculated is 1434 cubic meter. However, if flood-prone Brahmaputra basin is excluded, the value drops to 881 cubic meter. That means that if we exclude the Brahmaputra basins, the total water available, it will fall below the scarcity threshold level, that is 1000 cubic meter. And one more thing, very important, that the water of Brahmaputra we are unable to use so far. That means we are already water scarce. Now, if we are water scarce, what are the risks? So, risks are globally 1.5 million children under 5 die and 200 million days of work lost each year as a result of water-related diseases. 50% of world's workforce, that is about 1.5 billion people, as I told you earlier also, are dependent and employed in these water and natural resources dependent industry. So that will be a complete risk of loss of job. Water crisis again ranked top global risk in World Economic Forum. Lack of access of water and outbreak of pandemic may also increase the economic risk. Now, actually, if these are the risks, these are all related issues, then what we should do? So, water scarcity has aggravated by climate change could cause some regions up to 6% of loss by GDP, as I have already told. Women and children across the globe spend 200 million hours a day just to collect water, and this will be there. We see there are physical presence is not the access is not the same as access. Many times we have got the water tank, we have got the overhead water tank, but the water is not available there. So that is also more likely. Young girls often have to miss school to provide water for their families. So this will be there. Pollution of surface water bodies is again a big problem. These are all certain snapshots of the various places of India. This is Ulsur Lake in Bangalore. This is Wayahead River in Madurai. This is the position. This is the concern of the common mass towards the water bodies. Now, actually, as we could see that water is completely scarce, then what may be the solutions? Solution is the wastewater treatment and reuse. Now let us see what India is doing. We get generated 26.41 billion cubic meter of the wastewater and 9.81 cubic meter we treat. That is, we are treating only 37%, and rest and how much we are reusing is not known. But actually, in case of China, they are again 46.27 billion cubic meter of their water gets as a wastewater gets generated. 42.37 means 91% they treat it and 12% they reuse it. Similarly, in case of Brazil, they also do, but the better one is the Israel. You see, they are actually using 90% of the wastewater which is being used by the Israel. So this is the high time while we should see how the wastewater should be reused. Now let us see state-wise potential of wastewater generated. So the state-wise potential of wastewater generated is very high in our country, and there is a need for us to actually go for a wastewater treatment and wastewater reuse for irrigation purpose. And if we do so, then around 1 lakh hectare of area can be irrigated with the reuse of wastewater. Now, what is the national water policy says about all that? Because I have already flagged you the availability of water, the scarcity of water, and how the water should be reused. That is the only way out. We should minimize the water to the people. And what is the national water policy says? So let us see what the national water policy says. Resource availability is fixed and limited. Spatial and temporal distribution, disparity in distribution. Because there is in availability also, certain places receives a lot of rainfall, but they don't store like northeastern region. The Brahmaputra has got the abundant water, but we are unable to store or transfer it from there. So that water is lost. Increasing demand and inequitable access. The demand is increasing and access to the water is inequitable. you will find in villages the access is not that good as it is there in cities. And also in cities you can divide. The better societies in cities are getting better water and some are not. So this sort of the inequalities is there. So national water policy to govern the planning and development of water sources and their optimum utilization. National water policy, actually we thought of to have the policy somewhere from the year 1987, and since then it was thought of that a National Water Resources Council will be set up, which was set up in 1983, and to lay down the national water policy and to review it from time to time. And the first national water policy was published in 87. Then again in 2002, the national water policy was drafted and published, and it was for new challenges emerged in water resources by the time, and 1987 was reviewed and revised there. Again in National Water Policy 2012, need to address climate change for sustainable growth. Extensive deliberations were conducted on draft National Water Policy, including review by National Water Board, and then National Water Policy 2012 calls for plan of action with a unified national perspective. So this was thought of. Now there is another national water policy which is in the draft mode as on 2020, which was prepared, where the priority to reverse the degradation of rivers, because you could see the rivers, those are the main, so it's getting polluted. So there it was a priority to move to conservation and revival of river system. A rational and practical approach to water pricing, because the major reason is this, that we don't pay the price what is actually taken in creating the storage and in the transmission, distribution, and providing the water to the household. So that is, pricing should be appropriate and focus on water governance, and water should be properly governed. That should be there. National Water Policy, a consolidated effort, because in this draft National Water Policy, which covers the wisdom of both science and spirituality, is we are all linked with the rivers, where rivers generally we say mother river, whether it is Namada, Ganga, and all that. So with that blend, we want the people's participation. So the prioritization of different uses of water, giving first priority water for life, that is for drinking and food, shifting the focus from supply augmentation to demand side management. So far our focus was to supply more and more water, but now to manage it at the demand end, identifying the low hanging fruits, what best we can do. So touching the sensitive issues like separate power feeders, model groundwater bill, and water quality, etc. Because you see, there are the free water and free power in certain states, in almost all the states rather to say, and as a result, the extraction of the groundwater for the agriculture purposes is very high, because they need not to pay for water, they need not to pay for power. Consequently, it is affecting seriously to the industry side, seriously to the drinking water side, seriously to the urbanization sector. So this is what we need to do. Recommending the task force on emerging water contaminants. There are certain new contaminants which are coming in the water, and so a task force is required. And rejuvenation of traditional water bodies. Our traditional wisdom of having the tanks, wells, this all has been lost, and we have used them as a dump yard. So that to be revived and revitalized. So that was all the focus for the National Water Policy 2020, and it is in draft mode. I hope that it will be very shortly be adopted by the government. Now the technological interventions, what are needed, in what way we should go. So we should transform in agriculture. The transition from solo business to multi-stakeholder entrepreneurship should be there. In case of the agriculture, we are following the traditional age-old system, so that should change actually. The farmer should be a part of the entrepreneurship. and because our land size is shrinking, and he should think not only to go for a cultivation to horizontally, but also to vertical cultivation can be introduced, and it should be modern cultivation with a proper market linkages, with a proper and optimum moisture content and the water demand, and using the insecticide, pesticide in an appropriate manner. So this all cannot be in one, this all wisdom cannot lie in one person, that's the farmer. So farmers should be part of the entrepreneurship development and transformation of agriculture sector. That will yield more better result, that will give the resilient agriculture, and that will be a proper market prices. Now coming wastewater treatment, we are generating around 26.5 billion cubic meter of wastewater, as I told you, and only 1/3 of it is getting treated, and very minimal quantity is reused. So dominance of conventional technology of STPs need revamping. We should think something other, how to treat the wastewater and how to reuse the wastewater. Automate the routine maintenance activities, that should be automatic. The leaking pipe and all, we should actually automate it. We should know how the and where the leakage is happening, and what granules we should mix with the water to seal it then and there only, to maintain the service delivery efficiency and quality in tune with the rapid pace of urbanization. This is all is required. Then smart metering and use of artificial intelligence and machine language. You see, there should be smart metering. There should not be tampering of the metering. So what the water you are consuming and what the bill is being provided, it should be there. Instead of overhead tanks where the water is get lost almost to the quantum which is there stored on the overhead tank. We should go for 24/7 piped water supply and a pressurized supply. So that should happen. Improving quality of life and saving the loss during filling storages and all. So this will actually help that way. In case of smart metering, there will be efficient revenue collection, prevention of theft, and reduction of non-revenue water. So non-revenue water is very high, as I told you, 45 to 50% in Delhi, and Bombay also it is 30 to 40%. So everywhere actually we name it non-revenue water. We don't say it is blended. It is a theft water. It is the water which lost in transmission, distribution because of the leakage and all. A good name of non-revenue water has been given to this. Now, promotion of manufacturing industry. If we are able to save the water from the agriculture sector, we will be able to minimize and the agriculture water and put it for the industrial development. There is a water intensive the industries, those will require pharmaceutical industries where we are already proven our presence and our strength that can grow further, food processing industry, then service industry and MSMEs. All that can grow if the water is sufficiently available. In many parts of Maharashtra, many industries face the closure because of the scarcity of water. That all can very well be addressed if we are able to save the water from agriculture and put it for industrial use. Now coming back, it's all the story for the fresh water. Now let us coming back to the underwater domain awareness and acoustic capacity building. You see, this is again an area. We have got a 7,500 kilometer of coastline in the country, and this coastline is there, which runs through 9 states and 3 union territories. So far, actually, we are not able to understand the economic benefits out of the water, which is there in the exclusive economic zone or in the zone which is their coastal. Rather, we have very well flagged that in case of exclusive economic zone, our continental shelf permits us to 320 kilometers instead of 220, 350, 130 further claim we have put. So that is very much essential to know that what is our territory. So this is all our territory. Now what we can do, because in case of the coastal water, and in case of beyond exclusive economic zone, if we see there's a lot of potential exist, but there is not a proper awareness is not there. We can develop that awareness with the acoustic capacity building. It is not only essential for the strategic purpose. For strategic purpose, whatever is happening only in case of the defense, let them continue. But other many things can come out. We can grow the sea these seaweeds can be there, and we can have the understanding of freshwater ecosystem is critical and futuristic planning. In what way actually the temperature variation is really affecting to the freshwater with the ecosystem, with this our adjoining coastal area, so that can really affect in a big way. An effective the underwater domain awareness framework is essential, which can help and can place us in a very stronger position. Now, if we have got the underwater domain awareness framework, then that can support for freshwater management. As I told you, because we are receiving all water through precipitation and the temperature variation, which gets generated in the form of the southwest monsoon and all it is happening, we must know in what way it is happening, which is we not know much. We know only La Nina, and so that is only confined to that. So we should see blue economy, which has got a big potential. That will again depend on our awareness with that. Welfare of water dependent community. There is a water dependent community of fisheries and that community, which will definitely, if we have got the awareness, then how much sustainable fishing cultivation can be there, and we can really harness that also can be possible if we have got that awareness. There will not be either we have over exploited the fishing or we are under exploiting. So it will be a sustainable, the fisheries development will happen. Then inland water transport, in what way actually it can help. It has helped earlier. So in what way we can go ahead with that, and the coastal governance, and what way the coastal governance should be there, because this is an area we were at we were much stronger in this area since ancient time, but for quite some time we have just completely got unaware with this. We need to develop this. Lot many startups can be developed if we have got the complete information of underwater domain awareness. And I believe the MRC Pune is really working well in this direction. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for calling me, and thank you very much for listening me. Thanks a lot.
To the larger national vision. Any questions from the participants?
Sir, good morning. I am Captain Ravi Gunasinghe from Sri Lanka Navy. As per the data in articles I have seen, the India approximately 200 people die every year due to inadequate access to the safe water. What are the measures have been taken in order to mitigate this situation?
Yeah, very nice. We have got a scheme. I think 3.61 lakh crore we are spending in a time frame of 5 years, and we have got a scheme called Jal Jeevan Mission, where we are providing the piped water supply to every individual in the country, every household. And with that, so far we have achieved around 58% household pipe connection to the houses, and balance all will be covered by 2024. And thank you very much for your such a nice concern with the India. We are moving ahead with that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
There is a question from here.
Sir, can you please tell us about the community-driven approaches in water conservation?
Yeah, sure. See, the water conservation will not be feasible if we don't have the community-driven approaches. Our traditional and ancient system says in a village there used to be a 3 type of tanks. One tank was for the purpose of storing the drinking water, another for the purpose of bathing, and all other, and third for the cultivation. So this is the way we have developed. But of late, those traditional water bodies, those are more than few lakhs. Means those are, I cannot say few lakh, it is around 10 lakhs and plus. So those water bodies got actually deserted. No attention was paid, and in some places and many several lakh water bodies have been converted into dump yard. So we are going with the rejuvenation of those water bodies, and quite substantial fund is being given. And Honorable Prime Minister, with the name of Amrit Sarovar, in every district to revive such 75 water body, have initiated this approach with the people's participation, and it has tremendously improved the drinking water availability in the form of groundwater recharge. It has also provided the sufficient water to the livestock, and in many places to the agriculture in the period of Rabi, it has been provided.
Thank you, sir. Just one more question. A problem with centralized approach is that the projects they propose, they try to bring all the aspects into a normal level. Like if suppose there is a place where they have surplus of water, and there is another place where they have deficiency in water. But whenever they are making a policy, they cannot just differentiate between we are having surplus here, we are having deficiency here. What we are trying to do is that we will be just creating a normalcy in between these two. So does that affect the community-driven approaches?
No, actually, you are saying something different. The moment I'll say the surplus water or the deficient water, this can be done only in terms of the area. So suppose my area is micro watershed. So in that watershed, micro watershed, what is the availability of water? Beyond that would be watershed, and beyond that would be sub-basin, and beyond that there will be a basin. So in case of interbasin water transfer, again based on the surpluses and deficient, the water is being the states are being agreed for the water transfer. The same, it will come down to the level of micro watershed. If this micro watershed has got the deficient water, then we can assess and say the other water micro watershed where there is surplus water, the water can be transferred. So I think the water is such where we cannot put meter and say every individual that yes, this is my right. This all is linked with the natural system, with the southwest monsoon and all. We can go for conservation and harvesting the water as much as we can see, and then whatever is the available, we all need to really share our thing out of that available pie. So that's what we can do.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one question for me is how will you integrate the traditional knowledge and traditional practice into the larger water policy or the water resource management approach in the country?
You see, for quite some time, we were very much focused for the major dams. And as I told you, major dams are geographically governed because you cannot create dam each and every places. It is only the traditional knowledge which is existing in the southern India. Those developed these tanks, step tanks. One tank get filled, then other tank get filled, and this way it is there. Or if you go with the further traditional system, you see the all civilization developed all along the river banks. So that means the water plays a vital role in each and individual's life for its economic growth and for its sustenance. So the traditional, but only in India, we find in peninsular part many places which got developed based on the tanks, big tanks, and wells, stepped wells, and all that. So that traditional water knowledge of tanks, stepped tanks, wells, traditional wells, stepped wells, all that is very much required. We need to revive it, and we need to see that the conservation happens there. Actually, spiritually, as I told you in 2020 national water policy, it was linked in spiritually to everyone's life. While you conduct marriage, you need to go to well. While you do something, you need to go to some water body. It's an honor which is being given to the water body, so we should not be polluting it. The people used to throw the coins made of actually the brass to the water body, so that it used to actually pure that water body. It is all that. It's a concern of the people. Now I think we need to really revive the people in the same way.
Sir, one more question is, sir, typically water resource management and water quality management are being driven as independent initiatives. So do you think there is a convergence of the two?
No, actually, we already converged the two. The Ministry of Jal Shakti has been framed by only with this motto that the drinking water supply and the water resources part should be all put together, and then the quality aspect, because the quality aspect happens at the demand level, at the demand side. So that is to be taken care. We have opened some 2,200 laboratories all across the country, and every individual can really send the water sample over there, and it will be tested free of cost, and he will be told. So the water quality is definitely play the major roles. In certain places, the water quality is not up to the mark because of contamination, which we are receiving through industrial over industrialization, and the people are letting the water go and contaminate the water body and then the groundwater system. So we are taking due care for that. And now, and revival and storage of water bodies will definitely lead to the dilution of that water, and quality will improve.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate you taking time out and addressing the participant. And freshwater management is certainly a very, very important area. And we at MRC are also working quite seriously and intensely on this aspect. We are developing multiple tools from the digital transformation perspective, and we will continue our interaction with you and continue to seek your guidance on that. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
That was Shri Avinash Mishra from the NITI Aayog, and they are at the apex level of policy making in the country. They are looking at various aspects, and I think all of you will appreciate the diversity that this country has. I mean, to reach out and to address the concerns of so many different communities is not an easy task. There are certain legacy issues that we have been dealing with. The whole the transformation that the country is going through, it's not so easy to keep pace, and water definitely is an important area which requires focus. So we'll take a break, or I would, if there are any concerns or any comments on today, I think we are on the halfway mark right now. So any points from any of the participants? We have a little time, maybe half an hour till lunch. So any questions or any comments from anybody, we'll be happy to. I have slotted a thing after lunch also for the same, because your feedback is extremely important to us. This is not the first and the last, but this is just the beginning. We will continue to have a lot more such interactions. In our wisdom, we have tried to put something together, but we are definitely very open to your feedback. And finally, it is for you. And whatever ideas we have, we would like to reach out to you and continuously seek inputs so that we can make it more relevant to the different. And as you can also see in this hall, there's a diverse set of stakeholders that we are addressing. I mean, I have my friends from the Navy. Even in the Navy, if you see, there are so many different groups and branches and stakeholders, if I may use the word. So everybody have their own requirements or their mandates and their way of addressing the requirements. And for us also, it's very important to reach out to as many of them. I'm extremely happy the Naval Headquarters in their wisdom has deputed officers from very important organizations who are going to be the major stakeholders in terms of Navy's approach to the underwater. Similarly, I'm extremely happy to see my friends from the Army who have come down. And again, there also I can see not just geographical thing, but also you all represent very important components of the Indian Army and the way they approach their mandate. We have participants from Coast Guard. There again, the Coast Guard headquarters has been extremely kind, and they have sent officers from different locations and different operational entities. So it just definitely makes a lot of difference. Marine Police has been represented here. That's also very important because with 7,500 kilometers of coastline, the challenges are very diverse, the challenges are very different, and this is something which is, which is a more recent phenomena. The services, I think, over so many years have matured to a large extent, but I think the coastal security is a little recent phenomena in this country, and it does require, and they have to keep pace with the kind of technological advances that are happening, and how the adversaries that they are dealing with are keeping pace with the technology and the various know-how that is available. Then the young students coming from diverse disciplines, extremely happy to have you around. And Institute of Marine Engineers, my special thanks to them. They have taken the initiative of sending their members who are definitely the future leaders and future policy makers and stakeholders. So, and they have come all the way from Cochin. So I'm extremely happy to welcome all of you and have you here. Any questions anybody has or any comments? We'll have this post-lunch also. And this is a time where we can interact, and even anybody in the online mode also, if there is any questions or any comments, we'll be very, very keen to answer or take them as a feedback. No questions. Okay, so we'll take a break now, and there is we would also like you to interact within yourself. I mean, the different groups of people who have come from different organizations and different geographical locations. It's also some time for you to interact and kind of know each other better. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome back. We'll start with the MRC project presentation. Shlok Namani will be making a presentation on a digital tool that we have built for the coastal and riverine communities, followed by a brief discussion on what this workshop today. Right now, I think we are in the middle of the workshop 2. I would like to discuss the concept note that we have. I think we can do that before. Shlok, if you don't mind, I would like to. Okay, this is the concept note that we had prepared for this workshop. It has gone a bit of change because of availability of resource persons. But what I want to bring to your notice is, I don't know how many of you got a copy of this. If you've not, then we will share it with you. You can also join MRC as a WhatsApp group. All of you can also join that, and we can communicate through that. Anybody who's willing can just talk to Mehul. He can add you. And so this concept note we prepared for this thing. I can go through the thing, and the whole agenda is given in more details. And I think some of you may have to prepare a report when you go back. So you can always use this document also. And what I want to highlight, why I'm flashing it here, is this was the crux of the whole planning of this workshop. And you can see in the first week, so it has the initial concept note and then the detailed program. So you can see on day 1, we had the inaugural session. We had Mr. Mukesh Malhotra, who's the chairman of the Indo-Swiss Center. Then Professor Mukul Sutavne is the Vice Chancellor of COEP. He was here. I made a presentation. Mr. Pradeep Bhargav was here, and Ambassador Mudgal was here. Pradeep Bhargav was the former president of the Maratha Chamber, and he is instrumental in designing the green bonds in India. So an important person, has a lot of understanding of the whole ecosystem, corporate ecosystem. And Ambassador Mudgal was here, and then after that, I made a detailed presentation on what this UDA is all about. Then Professor Anamika from IIT Guwahati made a presentation on the larger geopolitical context, and also she talked about the Brahmaputra River and the river management and the basin management. And as you know, there are 4 countries involved, and how politics is important in policy making, how the geopolitical realities impact, or how geostrategic interests impact policy making. The next day, we had a panel discussion on skilling ecosystem. Ambassador Mudgal was chairing that because he is part of the FICCI Blue Economy Task Force. Then we had Dr. Apurva Palkar, she's the Vice Chancellor of the Skilling University in Maharashtra. Anamika was part of it, and I basically give an introductory remark on what is the larger vision of skilling in the underwater domain. And then we had Praful Talera also, because Prafulji is also the governing council member for the Sector Skill Council on Strategic Manufacturing and Capital Goods. Then we had Ambassador Mudgal speaking on the larger blue economy vision of the country, because the blue economy policy is going to be declared very soon. There is a Prime Minister's Committee on Blue Economy. He is a member of that. Then we had Mr. Deepak Samuel from, Dr. Deepak Samuel from the National Center for Sustainable Coastal Management. This is a center set up by the Ministry of Environment, and they are doing a lot of work on CRZ management and basically from a regulatory perspective. It was a very good presentation he made, and he could not come, so he did online. Then we had Shri Ashwin Shroff, who is the chairman of the Excel Industries. Excel Industries, Pidilite Industries, and Mamta Group, they have come together. These are 3 very big companies who have come together to set up an organization called Climacrew. And they are into seaweed farming. Seaweed, if you're not aware, is the only species which generates the highest per unit oxygen. So, but it has many other, so it is on the very extreme, and in fact, Shlok will be talking about it. It is very useful for the whole organic farming drive. I mean, seaweed is very rich in nitrogen and phosphorus. It is very, very commonly used in seafood. It is commonly used in the cosmetic industry. It is very commonly used in various other pharma industry also. So, and we are importing a lot of phosphorus and nitrogen for the fertilizer industry in India. So this has the potential to offset that. And because of its other sustainable properties, it is something, so Government of India today has a target of 10 million tons of seaweed to be produced. Right now we are producing 25,000 tons. So that is the gap. So this group, we are an advisor to them. We have built some technology tools, and we are a knowledge partner to them. But this is a huge area, and this is a very unique drive where industry has taken the lead. I was also part of another initiative of Deep Ocean Mission. In the Deep Ocean Mission, the government has invested significantly in the exploration. And now government is keen that the industry should participate in the exploitation. But we are finding it difficult. I'm part of the Blue Economy Task Force of FICCI, and we are finding it difficult to convince the industry to get involved and push things. But these two are very diametrically opposite examples of, you know, how, because see, when you talk about ecosystem, a lot of effort is required and a lot of things are required. Then, so Devlina made a, she was a little unwell, so she made a online presentation and what Climacrew is doing and what is the whole situation as far as seaweed cultivation is concerned in India. They have set up a unique facility in Ratnagiri where they are now looking at 50 tons of seaweed to be produced. So we are also going to be interacting with some of their people when we go for the field trip from here. And Shlok had made a presentation then also, because that was a group we wanted to look at and it was aligned to the previous conversation. And Selija made a presentation on how the SDGs, all the 17 SDGs have a direct relation with UDA and what we are doing, the various indicators, the various targets of the SDGs and how they can be achieved with a better or effective realization of the UDA framework. Day 3, we had Dr. Radhika's session. She's a maritime historian. She spoke on traditional knowledge. And this is one lecture I would recommend all of you to please go through. So what you see here, like if you see day 3, maritime history and traditional knowledge, after 10 days, this whole thing will be converted into a more hyperlinked thing. So if you click on the maritime history and traditional knowledge, you can see the video what she presented. And if you click on Radhika's session, you will know who that person is and you can go through their profile. Then we had Vladimir Rubin from the UNESCO headquarters in Paris. He made a presentation on because this is a decade of the ocean sciences declared by the UN, and Intergovernmental Ocean Commission is driving that initiative of the UN. So I thought Vladimir would be the most apt person to come and talk to our participant. So he made a very good presentation on how the UN is driving this decade of the ocean sciences and what is the role of MSP and those kind of things. So it was a very good presentation. He spoke for almost an hour. And that is also available now. And then Sanskar Soni, who's our MRC research fellow, you heard him yesterday also. So he also made a presentation, and Vladimir, after seeing his presentation, he was quite keen that MRC collaborates with the Intergovernmental Ocean Commission. I have met Vladimir in Paris in December, and we have discussed, but when they come and see what we are doing, there's a difference. Then Prafulji made a very compelling presentation on the choke points, how the geopolitics of the world moves and how they have an implication on national policy and global policy. So that was something I think all of you will really find it very interesting. And then we have Nishtha from our team making a presentation on what the UDA Digest is and what it contains and how some of you can also contribute to that. The fourth day we had, starting with presentation by Rishika on the sediment transport. I think you saw her also. And then we had Captain Sudhir Subedar. He made a presentation on the inland water transport and the Brahmaputra management. Again, I mean, as I said, Brahmaputra is a very different river. He has, Captain Subedar has been part of the Director General of Shipping. He was part of International Maritime Organization. He was based in London for more than 5 years. And then he has been instrumental in formulating the entire framework for the inland water transport in the Brahmaputra. Even the Act in the State Legislative Assembly has been part of, and also the Inland Water Transport Act, he's been instrumental in that. And he's very actively involved in various, he's a ship captain. He's been on the ship for more than 10, 15 years. And then he's been involved in the management. Then we had Dr. Neha Midha from the UNESCO India. She heads the natural sciences in India. She made a presentation. And then we had Ambassador Javed Ashraf from Paris. He made a presentation on the larger geopolitical, because he was instrumental in conceptualizing the Sagar vision of the Honorable Prime Minister. He was in PMO when the Sagar vision was declared by the Honorable Prime Minister. And then the next day we had Professor Ajay Dandekar. He's the president of the Bharat Rural Livelihood Foundation. He's also a professor in Shivnadar University. Professor Ajay and me have worked on a very important report for the government, but he has a very deep understanding of, one is on strategic matters. He claims to have read almost all the books on China, but he has a deep understanding. Because as an historian, he has been looking at various other things, the whole agrarian crisis in India. What you saw today, Avinash Mishra sir spoke about things, but he had a very different perspective, and it was very interesting. I think you'll like listening to what he had to say. The larger economic policy, the entire agricultural policy, and how the Green Revolution had its own impact on the larger socio-economic and socio-political map in India. Then we had a presentation by Swayam Prabha Das. She is a Fulbright scholar. She has done her PhD from JNU, and now she works for the G20 also, but she's actively involved in the entire climate change initiative. She is part of multiple global organizations. So she made a very good presentation on climate change and how the UDA framework is deeply connected. Then we had Mr. Hemang Jani, who is right now the secretary of the Capacity Building Commission. He was at the PMO. He was the OSD to the Prime Minister in 2015. Also involved in the whole conceptualization of the Sagar vision. But right now, his role is very important as the secretary of the Capacity Building Commission. His role is to enhance the knowledge, skill, and attitude of the 30 million government servants that we have today, including states. So he coming and spending 2 days with us, I think, is significant. And we are very happy to find that UDA is being taken seriously, because that is how a new initiative will find its legs. Then we had a small valedictory kind of an event where Shri Pratap Rao Pawar had joined us. He is a well-known corporate, and he also is the chairman of the Sakal Group. But he has been involved in various policy initiatives. He's also the chairman of the COEP Governing Council and also the Bhau Institute. The next workshop, I think you are all aware. So what I'm trying to tell you is that all this is going to be available online. Whatever you have missed in the previous workshop, you can always go back and look at some of them, and they'll be all available to you. They'll also be available in our website. So please take advantage of that. You can even share it with your colleagues. We'll be more happy. More and more people should take benefit out of this. And I think you can build up, you can see the way it has been built up so that you get a broader perspective of the larger policy concept and also how technology can enable policy. And then we are also going, so this is, I think you have gone through it, so I'm just flashing it. I'll not take much time in this. We have tried to bring the industry, the entire user academia industry partnership, and then we are here in day 3 today. And after this, we have a very interesting presentation post after this particular session. Commodore Banerjee has already arrived in Pune. He'll be just joining us very shortly. Tomorrow is a very important day. I would request all of you to be on time because David will be joining from Australia. David is, I have grown up reading his work. Right now, he is driving the Indo-Australian strategic partnership on maritime. David has agreed to join us, and he'll be talking about the Indo-Pacific and the IOR challenges and opportunity. Then we have General Khandare. General Khandare was the military advisor to the NSA. Before that, he retired as the Director General Military Intelligence. And now he is an advisor to the Honorable Raksha Mantri. And then we'll have Ambassador Raj Srivastav from Croatia. Croatia has recently entered the EU zone. And there are a lot of expectations. The entire South-South cooperation, the entire draw of the EU to the Indo-Pacific, there is a lot for us to be aware and also prepare ourselves. So Ambassador Raj Srivastava will be talking about that, seasoned diplomat. And then we'll have our MRC team member Sridhar will be talking about the data analytics part of it. And then 17th, I'll request all the service officers to kindly come in uniform because Admiral Ajay Kochar will be coming, and I'm sure he'll be coming in uniform. So all service officers are requested to kindly come in the rig of the day. And so we'll have General Shekatkar is also very important because he was the chairman of the Shekatkar committee, which has recommended complete restructuring of the armed forces. So somebody who has been very kind to us, and he's been a mentor to MRC. He'll be coming there. And then we have Mr. Vikram Puri is doing a lot of work for the defense now, both Army, Navy, he's working. And then we have Shri Krishna Prakash, the Special IGP, Coastal Police, because the coastal security is also a very, very important dimension. And we requested him, and he was very kind to accept our invitation. And then we have Admiral Ajay Kochar. He's presently the commandant of NDA, but I consider him as the senior leadership of the Navy. and he will be able to give us some guidance on how we can drive the UDA forward. He was my shipmate also at some point of time, a gunnery officer by specialization. And then we'll have Shri A.T. Ramchandani, who's heading the L&T Defense. And then we have, again, I have requested Radhika ma'am to take a session on maritime history and the strategic formulation. And then there'll be a panel discussion. You can see some very important people will be joining there, and that's the end of the second workshop. And this is the plan for the workshop 3. We'll be traveling to Malwan, and there is the Institute for Diving. They will be demonstrating scuba diving and various other activities that is happening there. Then there will be Mangrove Foundation, which will be taking us on a mangrove trail. Then there are a lot of researchers in Malwan working on various aspects, seaweed, aquaculture, and certain interaction with the fishing communities there. So it's a action-packed thing. Even that week also, I think there's a lot of takeaways. I don't think we'll be able to put a video of everything. Our communication team will pick up some portion of it, but it will not be like the workshop 1 and 2 where the entire thing will be available online. So that's the broad plan. And then there is a brief on what is UDA. So this document will be shared with all of you, and you may like to use it in whatever way you feel is important. And in 10 days time, this will be also ready with hyperlinks where you can reach out. You can click and also go through the videos on your own. So any questions or any comments? We are very keen that we get some feedback from all of you. And because it's very important, the idea of the workshop is not just to give you certain inputs, but also take inputs from you on how because this is going to be an ongoing process. Sometime in May, we are looking at another 5-day workshop. We are looking at probably the Army Chief joining us for that, and also the Honorable Minister for Jal Shakti. It's a 5-day event we are doing. And then 14th of June will be a 5-week UDA summer school. That also I have already written to the Naval Headquarters, and I have been told that Navy is positive. But we are also reaching out to various other organizations to have participation. Probably we didn't give enough time to organizations, and probably this was the first time a workshop of this scale is being done. So probably the awareness in the ecosystem was not good enough. But through all of you, we would like to reach out to the ecosystem and request them that please take advantage of this. And I must acknowledge the support of the H.T. Parekh Foundation, which has funded us for this event. They have sponsored the entire event. And it is being done under the aegis of the Indo-Swiss Center of Excellence, who are our partners for skilling. So the larger focus of this workshop is to institutionalize the skilling ecosystem in the country, to support the Sagar vision of the Honorable Prime Minister, and how the UDA is an important component to that. So with that, I'll stop. Any comments or any points from anybody, I'll be happy to either respond or take note of. Anybody? Yep. Okay. Okay. So we'll hand over to Shlok. Shlok, it's all yours. And please make your presentation.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation on APY analysis for shrimps and seaweeds. So about me, I am Shlok Namani, pre-final year student in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Bombay. And currently I am working as a research fellow under Maritime Research Center. So before starting the presentation, let's have a brief overview of what we are going to see in the presentation. So we will be starting with the aquaculture and the associated UDA framework, and seeing the notion of aquaculture in the Indian economy, followed by the APY analysis of shrimps as well as seaweeds, and concluding it with the non-conventional aquaculture. So this is the main core of this presentation, where we will be seeing how the technological interventions can help to take aquaculture to a completely new level, where it is more sustainable and more economically rewarding for us. So starting with the first, which is the aquaculture and the UDA framework. So in this, broadly, we will be seeing how aquaculture supports the aspects of blue economy and sustainable development by making the justified use of the oceanic resources. So beginning this part with the understanding what the term UDA framework is. So UDA framework, or the Underwater Domain Awareness Framework, it tries to encompass all the set of stakeholders which are associated with the maritime research, security and development. So in brief, the key stakeholders for the context of aquaculture includes the blue economy, marine environment and science and technology. So we will be seeing these all these stakeholders and what are they seeking from the aquaculture in detail. So starting with what's the World Bank definition of the blue economy is. So it states blue economy is the sustainable use of oceanic resources for economic growth, improved livelihoods and jobs while preserving the health of ocean ecosystem. So now let's break this definition down and how, as a research community, how MRC as a research community helps to broaden this scope of blue economy. So by conducting this precise research, we are trying to provide insights to explore the correct regions in India to harness the true potential of the aquaculture. And by developing the aquaculture in a certain region, it also supports the source of employment. It is the first part of the definition of blue economy, that we are providing the employment using the aquaculture. Second, this employment brings better lives for the community people. So it encompasses the second one, that it gives a better life to those who are associated with this development of aquaculture. And third is the reach to available technology. By more and more fund infusion into the aquaculture, there are more chances to develop the relevant technology into aquaculture. So these three aspects are being covered by conducting a precise research in the aquaculture domain. So these all are possible because of an infrastructure which is being developed by exploiting the maritime or marine resources in the justified manner, because we are also tracking the sustainable development of this industry. And that's the true meaning of the blue economy. So that brings us to the second one, which is the marine environment. So what's the notion of marine environment? So starting it with the quote that every action is associated with a consequence, either negative or positive. So why we are focusing on negative consequences? Because even if we are aware of if we are aware of our consequences of our decisions, then we are able to make some of the points or steps to mitigate the adverse effects which may be seen in the future. So this step is called the sustainable growth of an industry, where we are able to mitigate the adverse effect which might be occurring in the future. And even if we don't track that effects, so if we are trying to exploit the marine resource in unjustified manner, that will lead to a positive feedback. In that case, starting of a habitat degradation will lead to the loss of flora, and this loss of flora will accelerate the loss of fauna, and this finally in a cycle will accelerate the complete destruction of the marine environment, so which is a very harsh effect on the overall ecosystem. So we are trying to track with a precise research to develop a sustainable growth around this aquaculture. And third, where this research helps to encompass both marine environment as well as blue economics, the science and technology aspect. So by using the knowledge and application of science, we are trying to understand how the biological reactions and growth process happens in the marine organisms in the aquaculture, which we are trying to focus upon. So the shrimps and seaweeds, which are the core organisms of our research. So by understanding their growth patterns, where the science is able to explain how the polyculture can benefit the sustainable growth of both shrimp and seaweed industry. We will be looking at it later in detail. The second is the technological intervention. So the technological interventions and innovations, it can help to collect the data from the farms, and by doing some pre-processing in the back end and processing of the data, we are able to disseminate some of the various insights about this data in real time to the farmers. For example, by making some growth models, by using computer vision, by making use of the machine learning paradigms or the remote sensing to help the farmer to get the insights about how they are cultivating and what steps should they take. This brings us to the second notion of the aquaculture in the Indian economy, where we will be seeing how the aquaculture is growing in the perspective of Indian economy in brief. So starting with some numbers, because whenever we see economic terms, so there we need some numbers to make us understand where are we in terms of the rankings and stuff. So starting it with the total marine food export industry, the growth of the marine food export industry in financial year 2021-2022. So the annual growth rate of 30% was achieved despite the COVID disruptions. So it's a very optimistic number to encourage the researchers to come into the aquaculture, as well as the farmers to come into the aquaculture farming. Second, out of the total seafood exports, the 75% of it was the frozen shrimps, which is also part of our own research. So it also makes us enthusiastic towards our work to make, because this industry is getting bigger and bigger with time. So the chances for research and a sustainable growth around it are more and more. India ranks second in the global shrimps export, only after the Ecuador. So yeah, we are also coming to the top, topping the charts in terms of the global shrimp exports. So, and if we talk about the seaweed trade market, so as said by the director of ICAR, so it's around in the year 2022-2023. So it's around USD $16.5 billion. So that's a very huge number to tap. So there is a lot of untapped potential which we are trying to tap in terms of the financial numbers. And even by around in the upcoming years, India has potential to produce around 10 million tons of the total 35 million tons of seaweed being produced globally. So that turns out to around 30% of the total produce. So there is a huge potential to be harnessed. And as a matter of fact, in the previous year, we only produced around 35,000 tons. So that's a mere 0.0001% of the total produce being of the seaweed being done globally. So yeah, huge potential which we are trying to tap. And these are some of the policies which are already in action to support aquaculture, ranging from Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which tries to infuse around $3 billion to develop the infrastructure of the marine fisheries and aquaculture, and followed by the inland aquaculture policy of 2019. The core of this policy was the developing the sustainable infrastructure of the aquaculture. So this is a very important thing, that it also focuses on the sustainability, not only the profitability. And the third is National Fisheries Policies 2020. So along with fisheries, it also supports aquaculture to promote a sustainable development of this sector, as well as also enhancing the productivity, and also making it more and more research oriented to bring more and more researchers into the field of aquaculture. So all these policies are for farmers, for policymakers, for stakeholders, as well as us researchers. And this brings us to the third topic, or the core of our research, which is the APY analysis of shrimps and seaweed. So here we will be discussing the concept of APY, or the area production and yield analysis, along with the research outcomes and limitations. So I will be just covering this slide fast, like to give a brief overview of what shrimps and seaweeds are to those who haven't heard about them before. So shrimps are the type of seafood which are consumed worldwide. There are various delicacies made in various parts of the world with shrimp. In terms of the research orientation, we are looking at the two organisms, Lithopenis vannamei and Penis monodon, which loosely translates to white leg shrimp as well as tiger shrimp, these are the most produced shrimp in the order. L. vannamei is the first, followed by the P. monodon. And on the other hand, seaweeds, these belong to the phytoplankton categories. They are nutritious for other consumption. They contain high amounts of fiber. They also hold a high intrinsic values for the industries. The red seaweed yield carrageenan, which is used for the gel industries, thickening agents. So they hold a high intrinsic values for as a raw material for the industries also. So seaweeds not only as a food but also as a raw material for high value product industries. So, and as a matter of fact, in Australia, startup named Umaro, they pitched a plant-based bacon which is made from the proteins used from red seaweeds. So now seaweeds has also paved their path into the plant-based meat industry. So yeah, there is a huge potential for the seaweeds which can be tapped because of the geographical location of Indian coastal regions, which have the huge potential to make to produce high amounts of seaweeds. So what's APY and what are we trying to understand in APY? So APY is a collective abbreviation of three parameters reflecting the efficiency of any production unit. So in terms of our research, so each production unit refers to a farm from where a shrimp or seaweed is being found. or is being cultivated. So this area, production and yield. So let's understand this each of the terms in detail. So area is the total area under the production unit and also the associated wasteland. Because for a production unit, there is also a certain amount of wasteland being used. And if you don't track it, then it makes the whole industry unsustainable, because the waste is one of the key criteria to define sustainability. We are trying to minimize our waste losses. So it is important that we are trying to minimize the amount of waste land or the land which is gone under the waste for a farm. So this also comes under the total area being used by the farm, followed by the production. So production means all the produce which is economically valuable to the community, which can be sold, not the waste. The waste is again the produce from the production unit, but it is not economically valuable. So it adds as a loss to the industry and also as a adds as a loss to environment if it is non-biodegradable. So in production, we will be only seeing the commodity which is economically valuable. Third is the yield. So yield is the most important of these and most toughest to be modeled, because it defines the productivity of any farm. Like how much production is there compared to how much area is being covered. So here I just want to bring a matter of fact. We are producing a lot of shrimp, but in that in correlation of the production, we are also using a lot of land to cultivate shrimp. So that's not a good criteria, because land, as we will see in the formalizing of ABY, that land is a valuable and scarce resource. We have to make justified use of land, and every use of land under shrimp or seaweed cultivation should be economically justified for the government, who are trying to bring or to change the complete notion of aquaculture by making it more sustainable and more rewarding. So we have to justify the use of the land, and to justify the use of the land to the environmental researchers also, that whatever land we are using, it is sustainable and well under the limits of nature. So in A or in area part, we will be seeing the study of available land in India and finding the feasibility of the land to be used for developing the aquaculture. Some land may be more rewarding, some land may not be feasible to use under the aquaculture. It may be more usable to use under the agriculture domain or for the infrastructure development. So we have to tap only those lands which are rewarding in terms of the aquaculture. Coming to the production, so production is a key factor to understand the strength and interest of the stakeholders. So by this, we mean that we are trying to analyze the trends of production in the past decade or so. By that, we are trying to correlate in some years if there were some miss or unfortunate events, how the production dip was there, how much the production is affected. So in future, if certain events occur again, then we will be prepared to take steps so that we are able to mitigate some of the effect, and we are trying to grow in the terms of like our compound annual growth rate. We are not affected so much. So by correlating the previous trends with the unfortunate events, we are able to make some forecast to set necessary goals against the economic benchmarks, like what are the economic terms we are trying to achieve in the 5 years of frame or 10 years of frame. And the third or the most important which we are focusing upon is the yield. So by developing a sustainable framework around aquaculture, we are trying to have the maximum returns as well as the minimum losses for the farmers. And this demand the need for an optimum yield, and that will try to maximize the total production from a farm, because we are assuming the farmland is fixed and we are trying to achieve the higher yield. So the production, which is the multiply or the product of yield and area. So area being fixed, by enhancing the yield, we are enhancing the overall production. And high complexity of the yield on environmental parameters, like the commodity are shrimps and seaweeds. They are not like some raw materials or products which are manufactured in industry. They are something which are just organisms which interact with environment just like us. So there are a lot of environmental parameters. There are a lot of biological stress due to environmental parameters. There are stress response cycle. So these are most analytically tough to model as a part of the research. And this is the one key criteria to make this whole industry sustainable. So this is just some slide insight into the research which we are doing. So this is the biological study of seaweeds. So there are a lot of literature reviews being conducted. From this, we get some. These are the handful of parameters which we feel are the most important ones, which affect the growth of seaweeds. Similarly, for shrimps, these are the another set of parameters. So these set of parameters are like more common to us as a humans because the shrimps are also zooplanktons like us. So they also depend more on the feed, like they how good quality feed is being fed, what is the oxygen level they are getting, what is the quality of water and temperature. Just like us, they also need some optimum temperature to grow in the maximum. This is the abstract model. There is all the details and backend part is removed from here. This is the abstraction of APY analysis which we are trying to do. So APY model is nothing but a non-linear function to map the set of inputs to the output. So what the inputs are? The inputs include the set of farm inputs which we have already seen. What are the biological parameters which affect the growth of shrimps and seaweeds? The temperature, the water quality, or all. From each farm, we will be using sensors to fetch them. We can also use the weather and climate data that will remove the need of the sensors which track the water as well as the temperature. So those we can get from the climate data directly. Those are available with the CPCB boards and of each of the states. So if you directly get those from the climate board or CPCB boards, then we are able to make it more cheaper, more cost affordable by using lesser sensors in farm. And this APY model is a input to output map, which takes the n amount of input and tracks it into the one output, which is the output yield, which is actually based on the how much production is and how much is the area of the farm. Satellite imaging data is another part which we are looking to basically track how much area in a demographic location is covered in what kind of aquaculture, agriculture, and infrastructure. So these are the benefits of conducting APY research. So let's go through this in brief. So first is tapping the untapped. So we are trying to identify the region which are having the high potential to cultivate shrimps and seaweeds. So that will, if we are able to track these regions, then it will help the policymakers to make informed decisions on building infrastructure around aquaculture. Higher returns because we are trying to optimize the yield, the maximum yield the farmer can get from his farm. So then the farmer have a tool that helps him to optimize the input and get most returns of the inputs which he have given to the farm or the hard work which they have done. But the supporting cycle, that the higher returns and the higher opportunities, these both go in hand. So if there are higher returns from the aquaculture, then it brings more employment opportunities bring higher return to the more community. So that will it is a win-win situation for both people and policymakers, as now policymakers will also infuse more and more fund into that specific region to develop more and more aquaculture infrastructure. Fourth is the comfortable lives, like a better economic growth actually supports, like it is a cause, like the economic growth actually is a kind of, it causes the comfortable life for each of the farmers. So they are both strongly correlated. And if we are able to make a more better life for the farmers in terms of economy, then they will be also be having a comfortable life. So this is the end goal which we are trying to seek in the end of the complete at the end-to-end solution from the desktop for the stakeholders which they are trying to analyze each of the farm, from remote sensing to the phone, which is available to each of the farmer, where they can track the input and output of their farm or the sustainable level of their farm. So this is a small working demo of this application. This gives some of the, like, it helps farmers to understand. So there are slight information about what we have done. There is also a complete documentation attached with this tool, where the researchers can understand how the tool was developed. So since shrimps and seaweeds both belongs to different paradigms of organisms, one is zooplankton and other is phytoplankton. So for both of them, the different kind of tool or the model, the backend model is different. That's why there are two options here. So let's start with seaweed. So in the seaweed, we are basically tracking two of the species which are the most grown in Indian Ocean region. One is the Gracilaria adulis and second is Capophycus alvarezi. Yeah. Let's give some of the inputs of our farm. That's 30 degrees centigrade. Stocking density means that how much of the shrimp or the seaweed, the biomass of seaweed being planted in unit area. Let's say around 2 kg or 5 kg per meter square is a common value, which is being said by the government documents that it is the optimum value. Days of culture is the total cultivation period, like from the seeding of the seaweeds to the end, like to harvesting the produce. So that's the days of culture. Sakai depth is the tool to is a kind of concept to measure the clarity of water. More the Sakai depth, more clear is the water. Water depth means how depth from the top of water surface the seaweeds are planted. So, and this is the sunlight intensity. So yeah, this the main important part of this tool is that the farmers are now able to see the growth rate of their seaweeds and the estimated biomass per unit area. So as we can see from these parameters, the farmers are getting around 17.11 kg per meter square, which is kind of optimal, but around 20 kg per meter square is more optimal. So farmers can change this parameter and get the set of parameters which are more optimal and try to see are they able to really achieve that or not. And the estimated biomass per 9 square meter. So this 9 square meter is actually the raft technology or the raft method being teached by the government to the aquaculture farmer, where the seaweeds are being planted on 9 by 3 meter raft. And so from each raft, they are able to get 153 kgs. The seaweed. This is for the shrimp. Second, so the model is different, and so are the parameters. I have already explained temperature and stocking density. About the salinity, salinity means the nutrient contents. Like the just like us, the shrimps also needs a good amount of nitrates and phosphates, and that's this salinity is also the one reason why shrimp is unsustainable, because this salinity which the farmers try to maintain, it leaches into the ground, making it the land barren for agriculture. The feed quality is a qualitative term. The pH is basic, and the feed quantity is also a qualitative term as of now. Feed. So after evaluating the yield, it takes some time to compute. Okay, so here the estimated final weight is around 19 grams. So it is kind of optimal. Anything above around 17 to 18 for P monodon and L1MI is kind of optimal growth rate. So this gives us a sense of are these parameters optimal or not. So this is the very first iteration of this tool. There are a lot of things which we are trying to improve this to make it more accurate. And let's yeah. Yeah, one more thing which we can see is the expected survival rate. So as we can see, the stocking density is 40 on the top, but the survival rate is only 37.3. That means out of those 40, two shrimps are dead. So that's a kind of wastage, which we are trying to minimize by optimizing the yield. That's also one important factor. So let's move to the next part. So what are the current limitations in the APY research? So now in the third decade of 21st century, all the research is in the paradigm where we are trying to analyze more and more state-of-the-art architectures in the machine learning, including SVMs, random forest neural networks, regressions, and classification. But all of this requires a lot of or enough amount of structured and tabulate data, which is currently missing due to the lack of research and research community enthusiasm towards this domain. So we are not able to conduct what of the features which we have tracked in the inputs. How many of them are really important? Are these input parameters self-correlated? If they are self-correlated, then our tool is giving some wrong results, because there might be some inherited correlation between these parameters, which is making the computations inaccurate. So these things which we are not able to conduct because of lack of data is one of the bottleneck in the current APY research. Second, we strongly feel that it may be a hard time to for this sophisticated software to travel to the farmers due to the lack of technology friendliness in the rural communities. And this brings to the final and the fourth, the notion of non-conventional aquaculture, which we are trying to see for the development of aquaculture in the upcoming years, how the aquaculture is going to frame in the light of sustainable development goals. So this is a kind of differentiation between the shrimps and the seaweeds and their environmental impact. So on the one hand, we can see that there are a lot of disadvantage of shrimps. On the other hand, seaweeds can do carbon desequencing. They are the oxygen generators. They deacidify the water. They are used in wastewater treatment, biofuel production, fertilizer production, as they are rich in nitrates and phosphates. They are being used in cattle feed, and this cattle extracted cattle can be used into farm manure, that organic farming. And for us, they are also acting as a nutritious food source. So there is a very contrast between both of these, like what we are trying to achieve. Shrimps, on the one hand, are very at one end of the sustainability spectrum. On the other hand, seaweeds are at a kind of pinnacle of sustainability. So why are we studying these two very different species? What does it make sense? So let's just see a scenario where we are trying to say that shrimps are harmful while the seaweeds are at the pinnacle, and also shrimps are zooplanktons while seaweeds are phytoplankton. So what can be done? So the science said just combine them. So what observations were seen after combining? This is known as the polyculture. So in the polyculture, the seaweeds and shrimps are grown in combination. So they are being farmed in the same farm, in the same water. So what happens that the byproducts of shrimps, which includes the high amount of nitrates and phosphates, they are being taken by the seaweeds for their growth. And the shrimps can take seaweeds, as the food, as the feed. So it helps both of them to grow in situ or in symbiosis. And also there are more benefits rather than just this. On the left hand side, you can see a graph where there on the y-axis it is the mortality of the shrimp. And so what can be seen that there are four curves. And I will just explain what this control terms means. So this D3G0 means that there are no seaweeds. G1 means that there are a certain amount of seaweeds higher than before. 1.5 is more amount of seaweeds, and 2 is the highest amount of seaweeds with the shrimps. So as we can see, for the unshaded triangle, the mortality rate is least. It is 17.8. While for the first one, that D3G0, where only the shrimps are there and no seaweeds, the mortality rate is around 75. So it means that more and more mortality rate is being decreased with more and more introduction of seaweeds with shrimps. So in this case, we are able to see that how seaweeds are helping shrimps to maintain their health, and also increasing the also decreasing the mortality rate of the whole farm. This is the CV farm is the notion of how we are seeing a modern aquaculture in terms of the technological interventions. So first is the computer vision, where the cameras as endpoint can record the motion of organism. So what motion can provide? So yes, machine learning and AI can provide insights of the growth just from the motion tracking. And even as a matter of fact, there are various vision modules or the camera modules are available nowadays at affordable price. Let's say less than around $10, which is enough to be implemented for the farms. The second is the sensors to track environmental parameters, because we are manually feeding those values to the APY tool. That's not the case with the future. Everyone wants everything to be automated. So by using these sensors are available with some of these modules named Arduino or Raspberry Pi. These come with attachable cameras and high performance computing. So these can be implemented on the farms. They can share the data over the internet or the network to this APY tool, which may be sitting on the cloud or as a sophisticated physical server. So that can be done. And in case we are trying to get uninterrupted processing and timely alerts, so we can switch to the cloud-based machine learning, which are being offered by the Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Program, and Microsoft Azure Program. So just now we are about to conclude this. So let's just see what AI can see more than our eyes. So AI can track the motion of shrimps and can give us about the health. a higher motion rate can give us some insight into what's the kind of health or what's the kind of growth pattern which we might see in the future. AI can give more accurate prediction than the current model. Because why? Because from the images, AI can help us to get the length and weights of the organisms. So these weights, which we are trying to track by using the input farm parameters, the AI can directly give us. And finally, the remote sensing. From the satellite data, we can track which farm, which demographic locations are engaged in which kind of aquaculture activity. Either they are engaged in shrimp or seaweed or fisheries or any other kind of agriculture infrastructure. So for all of that, it's not only me. There are a lot of people in the MRC which are constantly working on this, including Siddharth, Sarita ma'am. She helps us to understand the biological understanding. Sanskar is working on the marine spatial planning. So his work ideates us to find which parts of the Indian Ocean region are most rewarding for the seaweed growth. Because we are trying to tap around 10,000 times of the current seaweed production which we are making in just 3 years. So we need to tap all those reasons which can give us this optimistic number which we are trying to track. And fourth is the Shelja ma'am. So Shelja ma'am helps us to align our work along the lines of sustainable development goals. With this, I end my presentation. Thank you for listening. And I hope it gave you a great insight about how the aquaculture is going to frame the notion of economy in the upcoming future for the rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have our next speaker also here. And we'll take a break for tea and then we'll assemble back. Shlok, thank you so much. It was definitely a good presentation.
Thank you.
And this is an ongoing work. You missed the name of Prakash from IIT Kharagpur also. He has also contributed to the seaweed project that we are doing. Thank you, Shlok. Thank you very much. We'll break for tea and then come back for the next session. Thank you. Welcome back. We are on day 3 and of workshop number 2. Although this is a technology intervention, but I also thought that certain user perspective, certain strategic perspective, certain geostrategic perspective are important while we are trying to understand the larger technology intervention. So today and tomorrow we will have a set of speakers who will be giving us a perspective on a combination of policy and technology. And right now we have none other than Commodore Somen Banerjee, sir. I'll not try to introduce him. I will request sir to speak about his journey. But I've been extremely fortunate. I've had some very intense discussion with sir. As you would appreciate, any new initiative will require a lot of brainstorming and a lot of very intense interactions to find where those gaps are and how we can steer whatever initiatives we are trying to drive. So as far as the UDA is concerned, some of the interactions with sir I had were absolutely out of the box and extremely out of the normal, if I can use that word, so that I got a very different perspective. Because when I started off, I was more coming from the technology background, trying to learn the larger global order, the larger policy perspective. But sometime back, I realized that you cannot even drive technology if you do not have the understanding of the larger strategic requirement and the larger policy requirement. And unless you impact policy, the best of technology will never find its place. So from that perspective, I rate this particular lecture that you're going to be attending at a very high level. And I know, sir, that he will be extremely convincing, and he will definitely bring a very different perspective. And I'm sure by the end of his lecture, you'll be totally converted. Sir, over to you.
Honorable Director of Maritime Research Center, distinguished participants, conveners of this workshop on maritime security, I wish to compliment MRC, the H.T. Parekh Foundation, and the Indo-Swiss Center of Excellence for organizing these seminars, and also for the very generous introduction that you gave me. Namaskar and good evening. As he was just now mentioning, and we were having a chat at the tea, we realized that what we face today are three issues. And during my presentation, this exactly will be my focus of discussion. A lot of it will be unsaid because of time limitations. But what we will have to discover is three things: governance gap, governance conflict, and governance overlap. There are various agencies, there are international bodies, there are regional players, and there are states. We make many rules to solve many problems, but there are plenty of gaps, governance gaps. Basically, governance gaps are of 5 types. First is knowledge gap. One man's terrorist is the other man's freedom fighter. Knowledge gap. Then normative gap. Should we have norms? What kind of norms should we create? Then after that, once we have decided that there's a norm required, like the BBNJ, the biodiversity beyond the national jurisdiction protocol, which has just been signed a few days back by the UN, at the UN. So unless those norms are settled, that drives policy. And the policies are at various levels, at the international level, at the regional level, and at the national level. In the world, like UN, UNCLOS can make whatever policies we make at the UN. But if the state doesn't implement it, like piracy, it will not get implemented. There's a tremendous amount of gap at the policy level. First normative, then policy. Then institutions. Do we have institutions? Which court will try piracy? There are very few. We have just got the piracy bill in December last year, right? And after you make institutions, then we switch to the last, which is implementation. So all through my presentation that you see today, I would like to request you to focus on these things, the 5 governance gaps and the 3 problems of governance, which is governance gaps, governance overlap, and governance conflict. If we can resolve this, all problems of non-traditional security threat that I'm going to speak on, though I'm not a student of non-traditional security, maritime security threat, I'm a student of international relations, and it is difficult to connect them sometimes. I will show you how, but still there's a huge lot of connection between them. So with that, I think I will go ahead and make my presentation. I have a few slides. I know Arnab has raised the expectations, so I hope I live up to it. But wedged between a panoply of human security concerns, states are mostly busy grappling with everyday issues of maritime threats and challenges, and they hardly have and these challenges that I'm going to discuss today can't wait for balance of power and maritime power projection, though the institutions doing them are the same. Huge problem. When one institution is supposed to do non-traditional security threat and also maritime power projection. Just imagine, and how do you connect this? And where do you set the priorities? That is what I'm going to discuss. So going by Christian, so this is Christian Buger's, precept on maritime security. And you can see that there is a overlap between national, environment, economic, and human security. This is a paper he had written, a seminal paper in 2015. The entire world follows this. But my discussion today is going to only delve into what is bordered within the red box. I will only discuss that because the rest of it, there's no time to discuss. And even there, given the time limitations, I can only touch a few things. So what I'll do is, because such lectures are extremely dragging and boring, I will cover this also with few stories, real stories. Well, these unique stories have a lot of power because these are the stories of victims. They convey the terrible human cost of terror, of forced labor, of human trafficking, and of drugs. These victims represent our best hope of breaking the vicious cycle of non-traditional security threats. In addition, I will also delve slightly into the fast emerging non-traditional world of seabed warfare. This has become something new. And I will also introduce a thing called nature of response. There are different types of natures of response to different kind of, threats. I'll just introduce that. So let me first start with one story of human trafficking in Bay of Bengal. Now, I will describe some unpleasant but real incidents. They might make you uncomfortable because the names of the people in pain and the places are real. Therefore, they deserve at least a few moments of your attention or our attention, even if it makes us uncomfortable and anxious. So the first story is about a 38-year-old lady called Rubina. She was in Rakhine province, living here with a husband. And because there is no job, because the Rohingyas are not treated as equal citizens, the husband had to leave and go to Malaysia for a job. And in 2017, when the crackdown started, you can see the number of villages that have been destroyed in Rakhine province, these red ones. And those that were left are in gray. Because of this, it resulted in refugee crisis, and almost 1 million people went into Bangladesh. They reached Bangladesh, and this lady, Rubina, she had a 7-year-old child. She was waiting there for her husband to return, who never came back. And finally, one day, she got a call from her husband that she can join him in Malaysia. So she was put in a boat. They got into a boat, and see the kind of boats they get into here. She was living in this Kutapalong refugee camp. These are all refugee camps. And this is the kind of condition they stay in. Obviously, anyone would like to flee from here. This is a reason for human trafficking. The reason and it happens through sea. So the non-traditional threat, which is one of the threat is human trafficking through sea. The reason for that is this kind of living condition. So she had to migrate. She took this boat. And when they reached Malaysia, that was in February 2020, the COVID was at its peak. Malaysian authorities did not take them. The boat was set adrift. Out of 396 people, 55 died. Thereafter, frantic messages came from wherever people must have reported. The Bangladeshi Coast Guard came, rescued them. They went back. Thereafter, she pledged that she will never undertake this journey and risk her son's life again. This is non-traditional threat of human trafficking. But unfortunately, she had two sisters who never learned anything from this. They undertook the similar journey next year. And this is Cox's Bazar airport is somewhere here, and there's a river here. That is the hotbed of human trafficking. They got into this boat. And out of 132, 60% And from there, they travel 99 kilometers to a place called St. Martin Island. 60% died and 40% went back. Who gained from it? The traffickers. They gave promises, they took the money, never reached anywhere close to Malaysia, went back to their home. And this is going on for centuries. Or when I say centuries, means trafficking is going on since centuries. Wherever there is conflict, trafficking is more. It's happening in Ukraine also now. So wherever there is conflict, there is trafficking. So therefore, we have to be alert. Whenever there is conflict, if you are actually interested in a student of, maritime threat, then that is the place to focus, because trafficking will happen 100%. So what kind of trafficking happens? Between March 2019 to 20, 15,000 trafficked. Pending trafficking cases, 4,400. Attempted journey in 1 year, 2,300. Most of them never reach. And refugees in Bangladesh today, about 7,223. This is the reason for human trafficking. This is a non-traditional threat. So I go to the next non-traditional threat. This is the route they take from Cox's Bazar. And if they're able to pay the ransom, they first stop here at Thailand. And whoever doesn't pay, they are sent back. And whoever pays, then they are sent to Malaysia and Indonesia. This is the route. All of us know it. And which is the agency? This is the agency, UNODC, Global Maritime Crime. They are supposed to, at the UN, similarly Bangladesh, which is also the coordinator of non-traditional threat. But nothing changes. Because, as I said, there is governance gap. And this governance gap is just not getting addressed. Now, I want to give you one silver lining here. India is emerging as Vishwaguru. And one will emerge as a Vishwaguru only if we provide solutions to governance gaps. Governance gaps are also opportunities. And therefore, it is our opportunity now to gather the effort of the region that we are living in and provide governance. It's an opportunity which we should take. So anybody who is in policy making or in think tanks or writing papers, the best thing to do is to identify governance gaps and then propose ways in which we can provide governance to the region. Only then we will become a rule maker from a rule taker. Currently, we are rule takers. Somebody else has made those rules. There are many rules. Most of them have been made by the West. But if we want to become rule makers, these are the governance gaps that we have to kill. Then we become the regional power and Vishwaguru. Otherwise, we will not become. Just by economic power doesn't make us Vishwaguru. We have to make the rules. We have to become rule makers. Therefore, we have to address these governance gaps, at least in our region. This is right in our back door. That's why I've taken these examples. The next one is this. This is the story of a fisherman, Somen, who was 15 years old in Myanmar, thought he will earn some money. He was promised $4.7 a day. So he traveled to this port here in south of Myanmar. And thereafter, he was put in a truck. He traveled like this and reached Kantang. Now, this journey was in a truck where 40 people were hiding under tents, basically illegal trafficking. And once he reached Kantang, he was sold. And like him, there were many who were sold. But before being sold, they were kept in prisons. This is the kind of prison they're kept, like this. And once after being sold, they embark these boats and remain there for 3 to 6 months. They are beaten, they're not given food, and once they come back to harbor, they are sold to the next boat. Like this, Somen spent 2 years. And finally, one day, one of the masters of the boat beat one of his compatriots so badly, he was unconscious. And in that unconscious state, that man was thrown overboard to drown. This resulted in Somen, 57-year-old man, by now he was 59, to jump from his boat. From here, he was working in South China Sea, in an Indonesian boat. Doing what? IUU fishing. So, human trafficking, illegal fishing, forced labor, all happening together. So many organizations, ASEAN, international organization, nobody can do anything. Then, when he jumped overboard, fortunately for him, there was a Malaysian fisherman passing by, picked him up. He was a good chap. And after 2 years, he set foot on land, returned home to tell this story. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known it. We wouldn't have known it. So, the official Thai government says that they have checked 4,74,334 fishermen. No one is doing forced labor. Official statement of Thai government. How will you catch forced labor then? The government is not interested. Okay. ASEAN, the FAO, implements this. There's a implementation program to prevent, deter, eliminate IUU fishing. It's all recorded, nice documents. Nothing happens. The maximum amount of forced labor, human trafficking, IUU fishing happens in these waters. Happens in our waters also, little less. So this is what is non-traditional security challenge. They affect human, where the security referent is not only the state, the security referent is also the human being, the individual. So I now go on to another story of this. Now this is kudos to our Coast Guard. You know, there was this cyclone. Name of this cyclone is Singa, which happened last year in 2022. So the cyclone passed on the 25th of October. The cyclone died down in our Odisha, West Bengal coast. And look at the promptness of our Coast Guard. Immediately they launched a Dornier aircraft. And they detected a boat floating somewhere 90 kilometers south of Sagar Island. Sagar is somewhere here. Inverted. This is the position of the boat. And the people were just hanging for life. The Dornier dropped this life raft, found this merchant ship next to it, okay, this merchant ship, and diverted the merchant ship. By then, CGS Vijaya, very close to my heart. This is a new Vijaya. I have served in the old Vijaya in Coast Guard. So this Vijaya picked them up from this merchant ship and then handed over them to Bangladesh Coast Guard. These were Bangladeshis, rescued by Indian Coast Guard. Look at the coordination. So there are positive stories also. This is the kind of coordination required. And kudos to Coast Guard for this. Nobody told them to take off and look for. Every time there is cyclone subsides, Coast Guard takes off to look for, because there will be fishermen who need help. So I think we must applaud Coast Guard, Indian Coast Guard. All of you, please give an applause. Thank you for that. So this is a good story. This is how coordination happens. Now, fishing is the most dangerous profession in the world. You've heard now whatever I have presented. And yet, look at the rules and regulations supporting this fishermen. If you look at the slide, this is shipping, SOLAS, 1974. Excellent safety regulations. But CTA 20212, which is Cape Town Agreement, still not ratified. So there is no rule to save the crew, fishing crew, existing today in the world. Okay. Training, STCW 1978, STCW, so there is something existing. Stability, there are rules to check the stability of fishing boats. Whereas shipping, there is LL1 1966. Okay. Collision, Colreg, same. Labor standards. MLC 2006 is for shipping. C118207 is a very weak labor laws. That is why you have forced labor at sea. Then you have environment, of course, MARPOL, and now we have VBNJ. So this is the most difficult profession, fishing. And yet it has got the weakest regulations. And that is why so many people suffer, live in inhuman condition, and they pass away as subhumans, even though born as humans. UN International Convention on Human Rights, all rules of all articles violated. Freedom from fear, freedom from want, and freedom of dignity violated. Who's responsible? Us, think tanks, policymakers, governments. We have to work. Every day we work for them. Even if you save one life, it's good enough. Good enough. Like the Coast Guard did, saved 9 people. Okay. I will stop for some time there on non-traditional threats, and I now switch to this seabed warfare, which is growing. Everyone knows about this Nord Stream accident which happened in September. Nord Stream and NS2 pipes were, exploded, and Russia to Germany pipeline was, exploded, and the gas stopped. But there was also another incident which took place, which happened somewhere in January. 4.3-kilometer cable of Norway underwater observatory disappeared. This was also a sabotage. After this happened, the Europeans immediately got into the act. You can see what all they have done. February, French Navy unveiled a new strategic seabed warfare doctrine already. Do we have one? I think we need to make one. And UDA could provide a draft for the government. MRC, because you have the domain knowledge. Maybe we will have to do this. Okay. Next May, Royal Navy reviewed the undersea vulnerabilities with private operators. How do we make this document? Obviously, you have to sit with private sectors because they know, because they are operating much below the sea level seabed. We are not, competent. We have to sit with them and make this draft document, give it to the government, come out with this strategic seabed warfare doctrine. It is real now. Okay. Next, November. UK MOD announced the procurement of 2 multi-role ocean surveillance MROS ships. And December, UK MOD announced order of first uncrewed submarine. People have already started acting on them. We also need to do something about it. Why? Because of this. Look at the internet cable that is passing. The backbone of the global communication infrastructure, 530 active or planned submarine cables in 2022. In the world. 21 cables feed Mumbai. If these are cut, they're not difficult to cut or damage. You can just drag an anchor and damage them. Okay. 10 trillion financial transfers happen on these cables every day. And production, deployment, maintenance are entirely in the hands of private sector. So sabotage is quite simple. So method of sabotage, very simple, mini submarines. That's how that Nord Stream would have been exploded. Or just drag an anchor, if you know where the cable is. So there are various recommendations that I have listed here. Basically create redundancy by laying more cables, move to space, some of the internet communication, increase intelligence sharing, again on UDA, prompt national risk assessment of cable project, and ensure private sector commitment to security, develop national monitoring and repair capability, adopt contingency planning in case of major breaks, again, complete international legal frameworks. There are many things, many are inadequate. We don't have adequate legal frameworks internationally on UDA or management of seabed warfare. We don't have them. So Russia, I thought I'll show you this slide, already has these platforms. This is a submarine. There's a mini submarine here. This is a nuclear torpedo. This is a AUV. So there are a lot of platforms Russia already has. But we are not as equipped as them, though NIOT is doing a great job, but that's mainly for extraction of resources and not for seabed warfare. So we need to change the focus like we have already done for Arctic, right? With that, I will now go on to another issue. Now here, I don't want to educate this audience about the following non-traditional threats I'm going to discuss. But I just want to show you with these two examples, piracy and illegal trafficking of wildlife, that see the nature of response, the difference in nature of response of states, the geopolitical angle behind it. Okay. So this is drugs. This is the heroin's seizure in 2021, and this is cocaine seizure. And this is the famous drug captagon, which is used in Arabian countries. And look at where it originates, Lebanon and Syria. And most of it travels sea route. Most of this travels sea route because very difficult to go through air. Possible through land, porous borders, but mostly through sea. And the most dangerous drug is meth. Why is it dangerous? Because you see, when you consume alcohol or nicotine, the dopamine content goes up from 100 to 200 only. And you feel happy. Makes you feel happy. Similarly, nicotine. Cocaine increases your dopamine content by about 350. But when you consume meth, it goes to 1,250. Just a few days back, there was a de-addiction center where one man, addict, was beaten to death. That man can't recover. There's no use beating that chap. Why? Because if you consume meth, there is an award component inside the brain, which makes you work. That gets destroyed if your dopamine contents reaches these levels. He just doesn't have that reward in him, satisfaction of reward, and therefore he stops working. He will have more drugs. So therefore, why I'm bringing out this is, it's a very serious threat. And most of it is happening through sea. You go to, I'm in NCC, I head the NCC of Odisha. Almost every college, there is drugs happening. They are at quantities sold, which is just below the legal level. Fortunately, it's not meth, small drugs. Just caught on to almost every college these days, in many states. I know a few colleges in Odisha because I work there. It's a very serious thing. We need to take this seriously. And if they start consuming meth, then life is over. So therefore, this kind of, and look at who are participating. This is once again, UNODC. No coordination. A lot of rules, regulations, resolutions, no coordination between states. Consumption of drugs are only increasing. Now, here are two incidents. Once again, Coast Guard. In coordination with our anti-terrorism squad, Coast Guard on 25th of December got 40 kgs of drugs worth 300 crores. And on 6th of March, this month, 61 kg of heroin. These two slides, this one and the previous one, what does it show us? Lack of trust. Nobody will share intelligence on drugs to another country. There's trust. Look at the trust that Coast Guard shares with ATS. That's why we are catching. And where is ATS getting the information from? From across the border. This is one kind of response that we give. This kind of response will work. We will not get the piracy kind of response, where all countries come together and do anti-piracy. Because all that is happening only at sea. No intelligence sharing is required. Pirates have to go to sea. Sea is open. Pirates can be caught. and brought to books. But where is the drug coming? In which vehicle? How is it coming? You don't know. You need intelligence. So where intelligence is required, big organizations will not work. You need like this kind of cooperation. Coast Guard, it is once again brilliant job by Coast Guard. And the trust they have built with our ATS and the National Security Council, which is doing all the coordination. We have to increase this coordination outside India with other countries. Only then we will catch many more other crimes, which I will just cover. This is wildlife trafficking. Look at how wildlife trafficking happens. And this is redwood trafficking. We are also the source, one of the major source. 390 million, 70 million dollars of redwood, rosewood is being bought by us, and another 2,800 by China. No coordination at international level. In contrast, for piracy, because the piracies don't do any planning, they just go to sea and do piracy. Look at the coordination that happens. Indian Navy and Indian Coast Guard, they work and they caught so many ships. Now we are doing in Gulf of Guinea also. Look at the coordination that international organizations have. Agencies, regional organizations, agencies, plenty of them working. CGPCS.
Digital Horizon was a military event that brought a number of partners together, utilizing artificial intelligence and new technologies through unmanned assets into the Fifth Fleet.
Strengthening partnerships and accelerating innovation is at the heart of what we do at Task Force 59, and we're able to do both at Digital.
This is Task Force, this is National Maritime Security Construct. So basically what I'm trying to bring forward is that so many countries operating at sea, they are, in the name of piracy, many countries are influencing the security architecture of the region. Some are in Indian Ocean region. Piracy is getting dissolved, agreed. But that's not the only transnational organized crime. There are many other crimes which have just projected. There are plenty of governance gaps which have to be liquidated. With that, I stop my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I think all of you will agree that it always brings a very different concept. And as you said, sir, there are a whole lot of gaps. But policy can never be done in isolation. Policy can never be done by private agencies. Or I would also say policy cannot be done by government alone. Because all these threats that you mentioned are extremely dynamic, evolving. Like even when you say underwater threat, acoustic mines are now available to a whole lot of, acoustic mine just cost 10 to 15,000 dollars. I think 20,000 rupees, not even dollars. There's a study by a postgraduate student in Naval Postgraduate School, Monterey. And the record says that amount of destruction acoustic mines or underwater mines have done is in few $100 million. So this is another very asymmetric threat that is there. And even now, terrorists have access to these kind of technologies. And when you talk about AUVs, there are certain terrorist groups who have access. I mean, LTT was considered one of them, but there are a couple of groups in Iran and other places who have access to underwater drones, which can be used for any kind of security threat. And nation states have to step up to make sure that we have a counter to that. Any questions anybody has?
Okay, like एयरपोर्ट पे जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे लगेजेस स्कैन्स होते हैं, तो पोर्ट्स पे या जितने भी हमारे पास टोल प्लाजास है, वहाँ पे हम कंटेनर स्कैनिंग के लिए ऐसा कुछ सोच रहे हैं क्या, या ऐसे कोई पॉलिसीज वगैरह आ रही क्या इंडियन सिक्योरिटी के लिए?
जब से जो टेररिस्ट अटैक हुआ है उसके बाद एक इंटरनेशनली ऑर्गेनाइज्ड मेथड इन प्लेस है. सपोज मैं फिशरीज से हूँ, मेरा फैक्ट्री इधर है पूना में, मैं यहाँ फिशिंग करता हूँ और मैं यहाँ से एक्सपोर्ट कर रहा हूँ यूएसए में, टेक्सास में. ठीक है, जब मेरा वो लोड हो जाएगा कंटेनर, तो मैं कस्टम्स को बुलाऊंगा यहाँ पे, कस्टम्स को यहाँ पे, यहाँ पूना में, और कस्टम आके मेरा कंटेनर चेक करके यहाँ सील करता है. और फिर यहाँ से जब इंडियन कस्टम्स जब उसको सील करके सिग्नेचर कर देता है कि ठीक है, वो एक्सेप्टेड है एट द पोर्ट ऑफ डिपार्चर इनटू वेरियस अदर शिप्स, इनटू एंट्री इनटू यूएसए, राइट इनटू टेक्सास. ये इंटरनेशनल पॉलिसी है और आई एम श्योर कोस्ट गार्ड विल बी एबल टू थ्रो बेटर लाइट, बट दिस इज द प्रोसीजर फॉलोड टुडे. आई होप दैट आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन.
कोई भी इलीगल प्रोसेस हो रही है तो वो लीगल यहाँ पे जाके नहीं होगी ना, तो फिर both in land and in water also.
See, inland, we generally don't come into play. Navy and Coast Guard or any other security agencies which are operating in maritime domain, we don't come into play. Okay, it is only when something is coming from the port, that is transiting through the sea. Okay, and once it comes and lands there at a port, then agencies like CSF and customs get involved. So we are not involved in that. Okay, and once the container is scanned there and it comes out of that port limit, then customs there, it finishes. Their basically limit finishes there, and Coast Guard also finishes there. And even Indian Navy also is not involved in that. After that, it is all surface transport agencies, including police and other agencies. Okay. And once it is cleared from there, that is, nothing is there. Okay. Then, it is clear, it can proceed. And the vendor himself is responsible. And then state agencies are there who are there to take care of those things. It is there at port. Scanners are there at port. Okay. Major ports, the scanners are there. Container scanners, they are called. They're big machines, like X-ray kind of machines. They scan. If any doubt is, though those containers are already cleared by customs, but they are again rescanned. If what are the content of the container is not matching with the bill of lading, then it is opened in front of the company rep, and then it is rechecked. Okay. I think I have answered your question.
I'll just add to this. In fact, the city of Pune is very blessed. First time, like what Sir said, there is a dry port concept which has come out. If everything is done at the port, it will be very difficult to manage. The volume is so high. So, in fact, Prafulji, you have been meeting him. Mr. Praful Talera is instrumental in setting up the dry port in the private sector for the first time. They have you can go and visit, they have this dry port in Dighi. So in that, they had to also get the custom commissionerate set up out here. And even the Pune airport has an air cargo complex. That's also for the first time in the private sector, it was done by them. So the same thing, what he said is that once it is checked there and sealed, then that seal cannot be opened by anybody till the time it reaches the destination. And then no more further checking is required. It has been checked by the customs in presence of the person who's handing over the goods there. And once it is done, it is sealed, then it goes straight to the port, and from there it is taken. And as Sir said, when it is opened, before it is opened, the customs there will check whether the seal is intact or not, and then only it is handed over to the people there. And the scanning today, technology is definitely evolving, and as officer from the Coast Guard also mentioned, that we are constantly upgrading our technology also, because see, you have to also see the convenience. Ease of doing business is very important. It is, from a security perspective, it is good that you open every container and check. But that will not allow business to happen. It will slow down the whole process. It will bring inefficiency to the economy. So from that perspective, when a policy is made, it has to have a balance between every aspect. So that's why these kind of, and they evolve. I mean, as Sir said, some policies come, there will be gaps. Then somebody has to then petition the policy maker to say these are the gaps and these are possible ways of correcting those gaps, and then the government will take cognizance of it. And finally, this is the government which has to do the needful, right?
जो इलीगल आइटम है वो तो लीगल पोर्ट से नहीं निकलेगा ना, वो तो इलीगल जगह ही जाएगा, वहाँ तो स्कैनर नहीं लगेगा, तो वहीं से आते हैं वो सब जो आप बोल रहे थे वही।
यहाँ पे पूरा जो इम्पोर्ट होता है, एक तो JNPT होता है सबसे बड़ा, दिघी में तो नहीं होता है, दिघी स्मॉल पोर्ट, द मेजर पोर्ट इज द JNPT। तो JNPT में कोई स्कैनर नहीं है, मैंने विजिट किया है JNPT, हम ऑडिट करते हैं उसका, वहाँ पे कोई स्कैनर नहीं है।
मरीन पुलिस इज कम फ्रॉम
यहाँ पे कोस्टल इंटेलिजेंस महाराष्ट्र, तो यहाँ पे कोई स्कैनर नहीं है। अभी रिसेंटली एक इंसिडेंस हुआ था बिफोर 6 मंथ, इनपुट था पंजाब का, पंजाब एटीएस और महाराष्ट्र एटीएस ने एक मिशन किया वहाँ पे, अब तक वो लैंड पे आया था, मतलब कंटेनर रेस्क्यू किया उसका, 600 करोड़ का उसमें ये मिला, तो स्कैन नहीं हुआ था उस कुछ, मतलब स्कैनर इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, क्योंकि जो गुड्स आ रहे हैं वो 60-40 आ रहे हैं, ऑल नोज, कस्टम नोज, कोस्ट गार्ड नोज 60-40 तो स्कैनर वो 60 है, वो 60 को स्कैन करेगा, 40 तो ऑलरेडी जूनियर है, उसको जरूरत नहीं है कुछ करने का, तो वो आइडेंटिफाई नहीं हो रहा है, इसके वजह से पूरा मार्केट में वो 60 सर्वाइवल हो रहा है। तो स्कैनिंग JNPT में नहीं, आई थिंक सो, एज पर माय नॉलेज वो चाहिए,
बट वी हैव टू चेक, JNPT पे नहीं है, ये तो एक बड़ा इनपुट है, वी विल चेक ऑन द इंटरनेट। या ठीक, ओके, गुड, थैंक्स फॉर दिस, ओके।
And also agencies, as sir had mentioned, do we have the agencies? देखो ये कोई भी नहीं कर सकता ना, there has to be an authorized agency, and वो एजेंसी को पहले क्रिएट करने के लिए there has to be an act of parliament, and you have to find a balance कि वो एजेंसी का मैंडेट बहुत क्लियरली डिफाइन होना पड़ेगा, that agency has to be given the adequate resources to be able to manage. So अभी जैसे बॉम्बे इंसिडेंट हुआ था, कसब इंसिडेंट हुआ था, सडनली वी वोक अप, कोस्ट गार्ड है, नेवी है, फिर भी इंसिडेंट हो गया, देन वी रियलाइज कि लेस देन 5 किलोमीटर में हमें एक और एजेंसी चाहिए, बिकॉज नेवी हैज अ रोल बियॉन्ड 25 to 20 इज कोस्ट गार्ड, देन मरीन पुलिस क्रिएट हुआ, बट एकदम से क्रिएट होने से तो पूरा ऑर्गेनाइजेशन नहीं बन जाता ना, तो उस पर टाइम लगता है, देन लोग आएंगे, नए लोग आएंगे, और एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन का कल्चर बनने में, वैल्यू सिस्टम बनने में टाइम लगता है, तो वो तो जो एग्जिस्टिंग पुलिस और वेरियस अदर एजेंसीज से लोगों को इकट्ठा किया, पहले वो एक अलग रोल प्ले कर रहे थे, अभी उनको यहाँ पे, अभी जैसे इवन पहले ये कॉन्सेप्ट था कि जो कोस्ट में पुलिस स्टेशन है उसको कोस्टल पुलिस बना दिया, अभी उनको दे आर मोर यूज टू मैनेजिंग लॉ एंड ऑर्डर, कोई क्रिमिनल एक्ट होता है उसको पकड़ना है, कोई वायलेशन ऑफ लॉ है वो उसका, बट दे वर नॉट लुकिंग एट द सी, या उनको उनके ट्रेडिशनल आउटलुक पे नहीं था कि समुंदर से कुछ होगा तो उसको देखना है, बट यहाँ पे अभी रिक्वायरमेंट टोटली डिफरेंट है, तो वो समय लगता है, उस पर काम होता है, रेगुलर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग होता है, तो वो थोड़ा सा थिंग्स हैव टू इवॉल्व, इंसिडेंट्स के बाद भी होता है, तो इट विल टेक टाइम, बट मैरीटाइम में आप अगर एविएशन को और मैरीटाइम को कंपेयर करें, जहाज हजारों सालों से चल रहे हैं, बट एयरक्राफ्ट बहुत रीसेंट फिनोमेना है कंपेयर्ड टू दैट, बट जो एविएशन सेक्टर है वो बहुत मैच्योर हो गया है, बहुत ज्यादा उसमें रूल्स एंड रेगुलेशंस हैं और काफी उसमें चेकिंग भी है, बट द सेम थिंग इज नॉट अवेलेबल इन द मैरीटाइम, इट इज मच डिफिकल्ट बाय नेचर मैरीटाइम को मैनेज करना बहुत, इवन जो 9/11 हुआ था, विद इन 6 months of 9/11 देयर वाज अ बोट, abandoned boat floating in the Manhattan Bay. So the US Coast Guard chief did not know how to answer this. अगर वहां पे हो सकता है तो where they have all the resources and all the understanding and the know-how, फिर भी वहां पे ऐसा हुआ है, and they acknowledged कि maritime domain को regulate करने में बहुत सारे challenges हैं. But as I mean, I think this is a good discussion. इसमें कुछ अच्छी चीजें आएंगी, एंड आई एम श्योर इट विल रीच द राइट लेवल्स जहाँ पे करेक्ट डिसीजन मेकिंग होगा. एज सर सेड, आप बहुत सारी एजेंसीज हैं, हर एक एजेंसी के अभी जैसे कोस्ट गार्ड है, नेवी है, मरीन पुलिस है, फिर कस्टम्स है, हर एक के अपने अपने मैंडेट्स हैं, आप उसको वायलेट नहीं कर सकते. जैसे अभी सर ने बोला कि वो एक पॉइंट पे आपको हैंड ओवर करना पड़ेगा, वो मरीन कस्टम्स का उसमें मैंडेट आता है, तो दे विल ओनली बी एबल टू हैंडल इट, उसके आप उसको ट्रेस पास नहीं कर सकते। तो ये सारी, बट उसमें भी कभी कभी ऐसा हो सकता है कि लाइक गैप्स इज वन एस्पेक्ट एंड ओवरलैपिंग इज, ओवरलैप्स भी होते हैं, गवर्नेंस ओवरलैप्स, तो उसको भी समझ के करना जरूरी है। एंड ये एक, आई थिंक आई एम हैप्पी दैट दिस इज एन एकेडमिक डिस्कशन वी आर डूइंग, बट द होल critical analysis comes from such discussions. People who are in the operations, उनका focus mindset एक अलग होता है, they have certain SOPs, उनको वो follow करना पड़ता है या वो करते हैं उसके बारे में, and they are too busy with that probably. But then these are the platforms where we discuss all these and bring it to their notice, and at some point we also reach out to them formally to say that इसको ऐसे कर सकते हैं, ये gap है और इसमें ऐसा solution हो सकता है, but finally they have to implement it. सर थोड़ा माइक यूज कीजिए, then people can.
रिसेंटली बीपीआर इंडिया ने एक मीटिंग किया था, अरेंज किया था, एसओपी रिगार्डिंग एसओपी में चेंजेस आ रहे हैं अभी। न्यू एसओपी अभी 17 डे लास्ट दिया है, 17 डे आफ्टर टुमारो उसका 17 है, उसके बाद वो फिर वापस रीडेवलप होगा, उसमें चेंजेस हो जाएंगे एसओपीज में। डे बाय डे जो चल रहा है वो डिफरेंस मतलब मोड्स ऑफ ऑपरेटिंग चेंज हो रही है, तो उसके रिगार्डिंग एसओपी में भी अभी डेवलपमेंट आ रही है।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, डेफिनेटली।
और सर कोस्ट गार्ड के साथ हम लोग काम करते हैं, बहुत रियली बहुत अच्छा काम है सर उनका, कोस्ट गार्ड का। मतलब बॉम्बे में तो सैल्यूट है उनके लिए।
एब्सोल्युटली ग्रेट। नो, इवन अभी जो नेशनल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी है, even they are looking at, I was discussing with some of the senior members in National Disaster Management Authority, and वहाँ पे भी underwater is not part of their mandate, जबकि I'm sure this is an important area. I mean, they are doing a lot of things, not that they are not doing, but इसको थोड़े focused way में, because moment you use the word underwater, then a different set of technology comes in. And that awareness of that technology, awareness of how the technology can make an impact is extremely critical. Even to that extent, Sagarmala में भी, Sagarmala इतना बड़ा project है. When I reached out to them, they deputed PwC to evaluate what I'm saying, and PwC gave us a thumbs up. But when it went to the secretary's level, then they said कि to include this, we have to change the mandate of Sagarmala. वहाँ पे underwater term has to be inserted, and then only it can be taken. I mean, at some point we may say कि ये तो बहुत bureaucratic है, but at the same time I also got convinced कि unless it is done in a very systematic manner, वहाँ बहुत ad hoc हो जाएंगे। अभी मैं आज एक नया आइडिया लेके आता हूँ, you say okay, start walking with him, कल कोई और आके कुछ बोलेगा, and if you start walking with him, वो भी correct नहीं है। So I think when we work at the policy level, thoda sa stability is required and thoda ठहराव is required, and then only we should proceed. So idea of this, I'm so happy all of you have participated in the discussion, is to not only the resource person, I mean you've seen a diverse set of resource persons who are coming, but even from the participation, I mean you can go back and give the feedback that there is so much more that can be part of your discourse internally, and which can add to the richness of your vision and policy making.
I just want to tell you that as an individual we can make a lot of difference. See, I was working in a think tank in वहाँ पे काम कर रहा था दिल्ली में, और वहाँ काम करते वक्त मुझे पता चला कि इंडिया इज़ नॉट पार्ट ऑफ द इंडियन ओशन कमीशन और द जिबूती कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट, इज़ नॉट पार्ट व्हेन आई वाज वर्किंग। फिर मैंने उसको कंसीव किया, आई वेंट टू द MEA टू कन्विंस द सेक्रेटरी, ही डिड नॉट गेट कन्विंस्ड। 3 साल मैं इस पर लिखता रहा, 2017-18 से लेके 3 साल लिखता रहा मैं पेपर्स, मेरे सारे पेपर अवेलेबल है इंटरनेट पे। फिर बाय लक आई वाज पोस्टेड टू मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स एज डायरेक्टर मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी। देन आई टुक माय पेपर्स, कन्वर्टेड इनटू कॉन्सेप्ट पेपर, और वो कॉन्सेप्ट पेपर मैंने नेवी, आर्मी, नेवी, कोस्ट गार्ड सबको भेजा। और फिर 3 महीने या 4 महीने लगे वहाँ से कमेंट्स आके, जब तक मैंने हमारे करंट फॉरेन मिनिस्टर को पुटअप किया वो पेपर, कंसेप्ट पेपर 6 महीने में अप्रूव हुआ। और फिर आज इंडिया जिबूती कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट का ऑब्जर्वर भी है और इंडियन ओशन कमीशन का भी ऑब्जर्वर है। तो इट टुक मी 5 years, बट so you can identify, I was saying, identify the governance gap. Take one item, identify the governance gap, and then work towards it. 5 साल लगेगा, पर लगेगा, आएगा जरूर.
Yep. I think there is. Can you give a mic to him?
सर जैसे कि आपने ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग के बारे में भी कहा कि ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग बहुत हो रही है, तो कोई ऐसी टेक्निक या ऐसी कोई प्रोसेस है क्या कि सारी जगह पे काउंटिंग्स होती है पीपल्स की, तो कोई ऐसे होती है कि हर एक कंट्रीज की काउंटिंग होकर ग्लोबल लेवल पर हर एक इंडिविजुअल्स की एक आइडेंटिटी क्रिएट हो सकती है, और अगर वो कोई ट्रांसपोर्ट कर रहा है तो वो चेक करके बाय द फिंगरप्रिंट्स और द आई लेंसेस और द अदर थिंग्स कैन आइडेंटिफाई दे आर फ्रॉम विच कंट्री.
सी ऐसा है कि अगर मैं बोलना भूल गया, थैंक यू फॉर दिस क्वेश्चन. ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग जब होता है तो ना कोई कंट्री ना कोई रीजन, कहीं किसी का अकाउंटिंग नहीं होता. टिल जिसका खुद का ट्रैफिक हुआ या फिर उनका इमीडिएट रिलेटिव कंप्लेन ना करे पर्सनली, या खुद आके ना बोले कि मेरा ट्रैफिक हो रहा है मुझे बचा लो, तब तक वो नहीं बचता है. ऐसा कोई पॉलिसी ऐसा हो नहीं सकता. ये कैन यू इमेजिन 1.4 बिलियन पीपल यू कैन कीप ट्रैक? नो. तब पेरेंट्स, योर रिलेटिव्स एंड योर सेल्फ, ऐसे ही हो रहा है अनफॉर्चुनेटली. बट अगर किसी ने खुद का रिपोर्ट नहीं किया, उसके फैमिली में कोई है नहीं देखने के लिए, तो इट इज अनफॉर्चुनेट. दिस इज द ट्रूथ.
थैंक यू सर.
Any more questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.